Wales also turning damper into the afternoon. Drier elsewhere for England and Wales. Once again, widely cloudy, though temperatures here struggling around 5 to 7 degrees Celsius, but widely double digits for Northern Ireland and Scotland. This north to south contrast is going to continue throughout a good portion of the forthcoming week. Northern areas will be milder, but also generally windier, more chances of seeing some rain around at times also. In the south, whilst drier for a part, it is going to see some fog around, particularly overnight, and it will be cooler in general as well. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar.
You could be joining the Great British Giveaway list of winners with your chance to grab a fantastic £50,000 in tax-free cash.
Hi, I'm Angela from Wigan and I won £30,000 with the Great British Giveaway. I'd say to people who want to enter or are wondering whether to enter to do it, it happens to people like me.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
With the dawn of the new year come new opportunities for the stage. Stefan Kyriazis joins us now to share how he started 2025.
We've got Sigourney Weaver, Hollywood star, coming in as Prospero in The Tempest. It's an experience. Sigourney Weaver has got this kind of patrician presence. She's always on stage, sat watching or stalking the area, but she doesn't quite get the Shakespearean rhythms for me. We've got more trauma for you, and we've got a little clip to run first. Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. I don't know how people's Christmases were with their families, but this is a very unhappy family, so you can feel good about your family, whatever they're like. This is Tennessee Williams' deeply unhappy story of a family in sort of Plantation South. The patriarch, Big Daddy, is dying, although he doesn't know it yet. Everyone is manoeuvring around him. Everyone is pretty unpleasant, pretty unhappy. It's all based on nobody really telling the truth. Everyone's suppressing things.
Got one more thing for us?
We do, and suddenly sunshine, life, joy. It's Nutcracker, but in Havana, which is from Carlos Acosta. It's a very Cuban feel, and again, we've got a lovely little clip to cheer us all up.
Good.
With that. There was no Christmas when he was growing up. Castro had banned it all. So we've got this setting in Cuba, and instead of magicians, you've got the uncle coming back from Miami, loads of presents. It's just full of joy, and you've got a reworked music. I love the Tchaikovsky score to death, but this one has been added, so you've got kind of Caribbean flutes and lutes and guitars. Huge exuberance, colourful, bright.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and for the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me for the next few hours, Director of the charity Sanctuary Foundation, Dr. Krish Kandia, and broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. Coming up, Rachel Reeves says that she will launch a war on waste. Perhaps she should go first. To stabilise public finances amid growing disquiet from her MPs over her handling of the economy. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, do you trust Rachel Reeves to reduce government waste? My poll is live on the GB News website, so head over there and vote now. In my niggle, I'll be taking on Tulip Sadiq head on. You couldn't make it up. Labour's anti-corruption minister is being investigated for, yes, you've guessed it, corruption, despite Sir Keir Starmer saying this in the summer.
I'm absolutely determined to restore honesty and integrity to government, because I think that is core to ensuring that people appreciate that politics can be a force for good.
And in my interview, I'll be speaking to the award-winning filmmaker Andrew Drury. Now, he is credited with being the journalist who knows ISIS bride Shamima Begum the best. He actually went out to Syria to interview her. He will be in the studio live. But before we get started, let's get your latest news with Will Hollis.
Nana, thank you. Your top story at 3 o'clock. A man has been arrested on a suspicion of attempted murder after a woman believed to be a hospital nurse was seriously injured after being stabbed in Royal Oldham Hospital's A&E department. Police were called to Rochdale Road yesterday to report of a stabbing, Greater Manchester Police has said. It's believed a member of the public attacked the staff at Royal Oldham Hospital with a bladed article or sharp instrument, which was not a knife, the force added. The woman, who's in her 50s, suffered serious injuries and remains in hospital for treatment, and her injuries are believed to be life-changing. In other news, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has accused the Health Secretary of attempting to conceal the reality of grooming gangs after he claimed the public discourse could risk vilifying certain communities. Wes Streeting had said the rhetoric around grooming gangs risked causing a second New Zealand mosque massacre. Mr Farage told The Telegraph that Mr Streeting's remarks were insulting. That's now as Labour MP Dan Cardin has broken ranks from Sir Keir Starmer, joining Andy Burnham in his calls for a national inquiry into the scandal. Fury over grooming gangs has reignited in recent weeks after Labour blocked a national inquiry backed by Kemi Badenoch and tech billionaire Elon Musk. Science Secretary Peter Kyle told GB News earlier today Labour are dedicated to making a change for victims.
Bill that we introduced into Parliament this week, the Child Welfare Bill, had as its central commitment multi-agency cooperation for fact. We would deliver it, and the Conservatives tried to stop it. Now, we didn't just introduce this on the back of a national debate that's happened in the last fortnight. We planned this bill in opposition. We have been drafting it in government. We implemented it last week. There are things we are doing and actions we're taking, and we will continue to do so and deliver for those victims.
The UK Health Security Agency has extended its cold weather health alert for all of England until Tuesday. Amber alerts will now run until January the 14th, meaning a rise in deaths, particularly among those aged 65 and over or with health conditions, is likely, the agency says. Temperatures dropped to minus 13.9 degrees overnight, but the Met Office has said the cold spell is coming to an end. To California, at least 16 people have been killed and thousands evacuated as fires rage on in Los Angeles. More than 100,000 people are under evacuation orders. Police say they've arrested 2 people who posed as firefighters to loot homes. Officials say they'll crack down on robberies and those who overcharge for services for displaced people. Gusty winds are forecast for the coming days, potentially further fueling the fires. And back to the UK. A North Yorkshire police officer has died after she was struck by a lorry as she was helping at the scene of an earlier road accident. The Mayor of York and North Yorkshire and Deputy Mayor of Policing, Fire and Crime said their hearts are broken. PC Rosie Pryor was standing on the verge of the A19 at Bagby near Thirsk with the driver and passenger of one of the cars involved when the lorry collided with them yesterday morning. Miss Pryor and 41-year-old Ryan Welford from Knaresborough, who'd been involved in the first collision, both died at the scene. The 65-year-old lorry driver was arrested on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving and has been released under investigation. A teenage boy who was a passenger in Mr. Welford's car is in a serious but stable condition in hospital. And your final story for now, train managers have launched the first of a series of 5 months of strikes on busy rail routes. There are currently picket lines outside stations, including London Euston, Liverpool and Edinburgh, in a dispute over rest day working. Members of the RMT union at Ivanti West Coast will strike every Sunday until the 25th of May. Regional organiser for the RMT, Kathy Mazur, spoke to GB News.
In 2021, they reduced all the rest days, and now they're looking for staff to work their rest days without any incentive. We're looking for a rest day payment for the hard-working train managers. We want proper safety-critical staff on the train, and they are paying their managers £400 a day to work these trains, and that is a big safety issue to us as well. So what we want is for them to come back to the table and negotiate a rest day payment.
At 3 o'clock, you're up to date. Let's get you back to Nana.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon. Welcome. It's just coming up to 7 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. Now, Rachel Reeves says that she will launch a war on waste to stabilise public finances, and amid growing disquiet from her MPs over the handling for the economy. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, do you trust Rachel Reeves to reduce government waste? My poll is live on the GB News website. Then, in my next Great British Debate, I'm asking, should Rachel Reeves resign as reports about the British economy continue to get worse and the Reeves recession is anticipated? Could the Prime Minister save the country more financial pain by simply getting rid of her? And in Worldview, I'll be joined by former performer and Mustafa Uri Geller, and we'll find out his thoughts on why Donald Trump is set on buying Greenland. All of that coming up. As ever, send me your thoughts. Post your comments at gbnews.com/your say. Right, so Rachel Reeves. Now, she is going to launch a war on waste to stabilise public finances amid growing disquiet from her MPs over her handling of the economy. And all of this is an attempt to get back on the right foot after the week of turmoil in the financial markets. The Chancellor will lead a major new drive to tackle waste and inefficiency across the public sector, which will leave no stone unturned. And Rachel has been criticised, though, as she visits China to boost relations with the nation. The Tories accusing her of having fled to China rather than explain how she'll fix the UK's economy. Well, earlier, GB News spoke to the Shadow Chancellor of his thoughts on Rachel.
Should not be in China at the moment, talking to the Chinese in the way she is, saying that she's got this £120 million a year additional funding coming into the UK economy, given that the moves in the bond market recently, partly at least, substantially at least, because of the decisions that she's taken, is costing us an estimated £12 billion pounds a year. That's enough to fund 300,000 nurses, for example. So, no, I think her judgment has been very poor, and very poor judgment around the budget, which is why we are in that situation.
Well, that was Mel Stride earlier. So basically, for every 25% of the money that we put into the Chancellor's coffers goes straight to paying off debt. Oh, well, that's £1 in every 4. Let's discuss this further with political commentator Nathaniel Oguniyi. Have I said that, Nathaniel? Is that right? How do I say your name?
Oguniyi, yes, that's the one.
Oh, I got it. Hey. All right, Nathaniel, look, this is a disaster, isn't it? Surely everyone can see how bad this is. Isn't it? Doesn't it look awful? Every single policy seems to be anti-growth, and only now the Chancellor finally goes, ooh, I need to show a bit of growth, so I'm going off to China for a paltry 115 million each year that they're in office.
So the Chancellor's trip to China, I think, comes at a very bad time. You look at the borrowing costs. I think you heard the Shadow Chancellor, Mel Stride, there talking about an extra 12 billion a year. So that's an extra 12 billion a year that the government is now paying to service its debt. You compare that to the state of the economy when the Conservatives left office back in July. Back in July, we had the fastest growing economy in the G7. So the G7 are, the biggest economies around the world, and we had the fastest growing economy of all of them. We had low unemployment, we had low inflation, and the economy was generally in a good place. There's actually a good tweet from back then from Rishi Sunak saying, Labour will raise your taxes. bookmark this tweet. And now we see that his predictions have come correct. You look back at the budget that took place last year, there were raises in taxes on individuals, there were raises in taxes on businesses, and now we're seeing the consequence of that.
So let's have a look at some of the taxes that they have put in place. Let's start with the national insurance, where they said that they weren't going to raise national insurance, and then they decided to differentiate between the employer and the employee and raise national insurance. Some people say that actually it's something that was simply just reversed because the Conservatives reversed a similar change a little while ago, so it's not that big a deal. Is that a correct way of looking at it, or does it have far-reaching implications that perhaps maybe the Chancellor did not consider?
No, I think it does have implications that the Chancellor didn't consider. And when we look at the package that the Conservatives delivered while in office as a whole, that was, of course, very different. When we look at what the Chancellor did in the budget last year, that raised taxes on businesses, that made it more expensive to employ workers. That means that you have large businesses now coming out saying that they are going to cut their investment, that they are going to cut their employment, and that has negative effects throughout our economy. We see that as a direct result of the Chancellor's budget last year.
Well, it's not as if Rachel didn't know that would happen, because we played a speech in 2019 from her when she was in the Houses of Commons explaining exactly what would happen, which is exactly what's happening, yet she's gone ahead and done it anyway. Have they got any wiggle room to do anything? Because it seems now the only thing they can do, really, is raise income tax, and that is something they said they wouldn't do in their manifesto.
So raising income tax would be a very unpopular move from this Labour government. You look at the poll ratings of the Prime Minister, and they have dropped significantly since he was in office. He has done the second worst of any Prime Minister, second only to Liz Truss, right? And we see how that ended. So raising income tax, I think, would be disastrous for the current government to do, but their options are limited. If you don't want to raise income tax, which results for a large share of government revenue, then you end up looking at other taxes that are paid by businesses, or you end up having to look at something like fuel duty, which of course impacts every person when they go and fill up at the pump. Something like fuel duty, actually, when you look at on a national scale, the vast majority of people still drive to get to work. They drive to drop their children off at primary school, they drive to see family and friends, whereas actually in London, where the vast majority of, say, senior ministers live, there's not so much driving, and so these costs aren't always fully understood. But they are in a difficult position. If you want to get the fastest sustained growth in the G7, which is what Labour say their target is to do, then you do require a large amount of private sector investment.
Doesn't seem like anything is really going according to plan. So what is left that they could do? Because they've pretty much levied. They're taking bits off bits, which is just making this means they're affecting everyone. So what should they do?
So there's the war on waste, which we hear. Andrew Neil was talking about earlier how the war on waste is almost the last chance for the government, in the sense that you've tried the spending. The budget was a lot more expansionary than many commentators expected. You've tried the taxation, which the budget raised taxes on businesses a lot more than people expected. There's not really much more that the Chancellor can do. She's in a very tough spot. That's why you have things like this war on waste. That's why you have the Prime Minister writing to regulators just before Christmas, asking them for ideas on how to grow the economy. Well, I think if you set businesses free of the almost punitive levels of taxation that they're seeing now, and I think they'll have a few ideas on how to grow the economy.
Nathaniel, thank you very much. That's Nathaniel Ogoni. I should have tried it a second time, but I think your lighting's worse than mine. Thank you very much. Right, well, meanwhile, major supermarket Morrisons have backed farmers as they protest against the government's planned inheritance tax raid in a blow to Sir Keir Starmer. So joining me now is Mo Metcalfe-Fisher, Director of External Affairs at the Countryside Alliance. He joins me from outside Morrisons because, of course, Morrisons have shown their support for the farmers. Mo, what do you think needs to happen now? Is it time for the government to literally roll back on this farmers' inheritance tax raid?
Oh, yeah, the time for that was almost immediately, Nana, and then they should have just listened to us at the time, and none of this would have happened. You've got not just farmers out rolling down the roads in their tractors, now going into Labour constituencies, formerly Conservative, now Labour, but you've also got now Morrisons, a humongous high street brand, coming out and saying, enough. rethink the policy. And that's what we've been saying. And this is huge pressure. But let's not forget, Nana, Morrisons know why it's important to stand up for farmers. It's because without farmers, they wouldn't have much of a business. You know, the public here, I'm actually outside of Morrisons in Camden, not very rural Camden, central Camden. And I've been talking to a couple of the people earlier, and they're well behind the farmers. And they get it. And so I'm actually going to go in and show my support to Morrisons for what they've done by going in and shopping and buying a few groceries. Because I'm very pleased. And look, we need all the support we can get. Farmers are out there working hard, you know, to produce food to put on our tables. And for some reason, Labour, Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer have declared some sort of war on them. And it just seems so ridiculous and such a pointless political move.
Well, it's only for a paltry 550 million, which isn't actually that much on the grand scheme of things, you know. So I don't get it. It doesn't sound like the right thing to do in my eyes. And do you think that perhaps they hadn't thought it through, all the unintended consequences? So, for example, suppliers of equipment to farmers are not getting as many orders now because farmers are thinking, oh, I can't really afford to buy new equipment. They hadn't thought that perhaps this might not work out for the supermarkets, or the fact that if we diminish the land for the farmers, then there will be no farming, and we cannot rely on food from other countries, because then war for us would simply be just to starve us, and that would be the end of it. Do you think they never thought this through?
No, I don't think they thought it through. Increasingly, I don't. And you're so right, Nana. It isn't just about the family farms. As important as they are, I mean, without them, we would be a pretty weak and pathetic country. But it goes so much further. Hospitality, the supermarkets, but also rural life in itself would be massively impacted. You know, when we get to go out and enjoy the countryside and look around, Nana, the reason it looks so beautiful is because farmers have made it that way, because they put huge amounts of time and resources into crafting a beautiful countryside that we all get to love and enjoy. And it's also other areas of rural life, schools. You know, there are villages which have schools because of family farms. You know, those will fall apart. None of this has been thought about, and this has been the problem for so many years on Whitehall. They're so disconnected to the countryside. And all we've been asking now is, it's not unreasonable, it's a policy rethink, and to get experts like the National Farmers Union, the CLA, and all these other tax experts around the table to come out with a solution. Because look, we've said from the start there is somewhat of a problem with some people using agricultural land to get round inheritance tax. We know that. We don't want them there. We want to get rid of them. Farmers want them out as much as possible. But this policy actually throws the very people they're claiming to defend right under the bus. And so as this new year moves on, as I warned on GB News just before New Year, this is going to get a lot more intense, and it's going to be a bad look for Labour. So on the topic of supermarkets, I hope that other supermarkets, Waitrose, Asda, Sainsbury's, Tesco's, do what Morrisons have done, and please stand with the farmers in opposition to this appalling tax.
Yeah. Well, listen, Mo, thank you very much for joining us. And, of course, it's so good to talk to you and hear how this policy would affect you. That's Mo Metcalfe-Fisher. He's the Director of External Affairs at the Countryside Alliance. So he's there outside Morrisons, the first supermarket to step up and support the farmers against the inheritance tax raid that the government proposed. So it's just fast approaching 20 minutes after 3 o'clock. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, is it time for Rachel Reeves to resign? But first, do you trust Rachel Reeves to reduce government waste? This is GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Teenage girls are out drinking their male peers in the UK at a greater rate than any other European country. Yes, more than a third of 15-year-old girls in the UK report getting repeatedly drunk compared to less than a quarter of boys the same age. I suppose what I'd say to this is, boys, what are you doing? Pull yourself together. Well, joining me now is the editor-at-large at the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths, and the former Labour advisor, Matthew Larzer. Charlotte, you're going to have to speak up on behalf of girls the country over here. 15-year-old girls boozing much more than their male counterparts.
I think it's to do with the pain threshold, so we can handle hangovers better.
Do you get hangovers when you're 15 years old?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I was drinking hooch and smelling...
Absolutely. Whatever happened to hooch?
Yeah. And I just think we can tolerate it better. Right. And I don't know, I grew up in that kind of wild child 90s drinking era. I'm showing my age a bit. And, God, we drank a lot as teenage girls. I mean, it's actually shocking now in retrospect.
Well, I also think in terms of boys versus girls, I wonder if we've got a bit of a thing about... I mean, the old cliché that girls develop quicker, they can become social quicker. They can certainly get into the pub more easily because they look older. Yeah. You know, because of makeup, etc. I wonder if the boys are all just, you know, in their rooms playing on their devices, as it were. You know, as people increasingly dominated by screens, whether in fact there's an issue about socialisation, about whether in fact, you know, the lads are not out there socialising.
They have little sips of wine in France from the age of like 12 and they're absolutely fine about it. Yeah. Whereas we all know what happens to British girls, because I was one of them. You turn, however, old enough to get a bottle of Smirnoff Ice, and boy, do you go for it, and until you're vomiting, basically.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
23 minutes after 3 o'clock. If you've just tuned in, welcome. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Now, it's time for the first Great British debate of this hour. And I'm asking, do you trust Rachel Reeves to reduce government waste? Now, the Chancellor, who is currently in Beijing as part of a trip to improve economic ties, has said that she plans to conduct a major crackdown on government waste. She aims to target 5% efficiency savings across departments as part of a comprehensive budget review set to coincide in June. But are you convinced? So for the Great British debate this hour, I'm asking, do you trust Rachel Reeves to reduce government waste? Well, joining me now, broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly, and also director of the Sanctuary Foundation, Dr. Krish Kandiah. Right, Danny Kelly.
I don't have any confidence in Rachel Reeves. She's given me nothing to instill confidence. She's made the disastrous budget, in my opinion. She just paid off the public service employees with £10 billion. She cut the winter fuel allowance, which cost the pensioners £1.4 billion. Did you know Morrison's, the supermarket, have even turned on her?
Yeah, we just talked about that. You obviously weren't watching.
Well, no, I tell you, I tell you what it was. The screen was flickering a little. Morrison's, the supermarket, have turned on her. I don't think she should be in China. I just don't have any confidence. She's done nothing that makes me think, well, give the girl a bit of time. Nothing at all. Now, if there's a 5% wastage that she's identified across government departments, then obviously that tells you one of two things. A, it's been overinflated. People have been bloated. Departments have had too many people working on too few jobs. Common sense. Or really, are we going to lose 5%? Are we going to lose 5% productivity? It's going to be really interesting. But I've seen nothing whatsoever that instills confidence with Rachel Reeves.
Chris?
I think we should give her a chance.
How much longer?
Well, 6 months is a pretty short amount of time to make a decision.
But it's a long enough time to make an absolute mess of things, isn't it?
Agreed, and we've seen someone do that in a lot shorter time. We could talk about Liz Truss and
well, Liz Truss what she did was a bit of a blip, but it wasn't. It didn't have.
But she seems to be pretty upset about people saying it was a disaster, and didn't she take out an injunction against our Prime Minister for daring to call it into question? But
well, no, it's because he said she crashed the economy, and she said that technically that wasn't true, and it wasn't wasn't really true. She didn't really question.
Yeah, he could have used his words more carefully.
So
maybe
that's what
destroyed, blew up. Find another word instead of crashed. But look, we've got a new manager at Everton. We were just talking about it, Danny. And how long do you give a manager before you think actually we need to change him? 6 months would be a short amount of time to change a manager of a football team. So why do we think a chancellor can change a whole economy in such a short amount of time?
Well, if you create policies that literally everyone is saying, no, don't do that, including the CBI, even the OBR can't verify her 22 billion. You've got the farmers up in arms. You've got supermarkets telling her this isn't working. You've got pensioners who she's robbed, literally. The WASPy women who they promised to pay back. Literally, many of the policies that they said that they would support, they're not. You've got private schools now closing at the rate of knots. It's not working. And what will it take for them to listen? If they're not listening, I think that's the problem. It's not so much that the policies are...
No, I agree that there are definitely decisions I might have taken differently, and I'm no economist. I guess the way that she's been willing to take some very hard lines on some very tough things. I disagree, for example, on the 2-child benefit cap. I think that isn't a good policy. But they do seem to be driven by a conviction to try and turn the economy around. So when it comes to this specific question, could she drive waste down? I think she is pretty hard. I think she will make some tough decisions. I'm not going to agree with them all, but I think she'll give it a good go.
Perhaps she should be the first to go.
I think it's ideologically driven, some of her policies. I really do. Generally speaking, farmers don't vote Labour. Generally speaking, older people don't vote Labour. And I think she's targeted those two demographics, those two groups of people, because she's not going to lose any votes, generally speaking. I think it's ideologically driven. The best example is the 20% VAT hike on middle-class parents sending their privileged, and if you're listening on radio, I'm doing this in inverted commas, in quotation marks, their privileged kids to school. Because not everybody is privileged who goes to private school, but nevertheless, you have this ideology that if you've got enough dough in the bank to send your kids to a private school, then you should be taxed, because you are, if you like, the bourgeoisie, and I'm sticking up for the proletariat.
Danny, I'm torn about the private school stuff, partly because some of my children, foster children, need to go to a special needs school.
I think that's different. If you have special needs, that's different.
I think we should put that in a different category.
You're right. Yeah.
And there should be some resolution that you shouldn't have to be VAT.
That's it. There's got to be a caveat for that.
But look, I went to an all-boys comprehensive school. My parents would have loved to have sent me to a private school or a fee-paying school. Couldn't afford it. And I don't mind the VAT on private schools if that money's going to help all the other schools to develop. So I think they really are trying to make better education available to more people. Yeah. So I can't get that excited about the VAT rise.
But you know, the almost instant, day one, OK, let's buy off the public workers with a 10-point-something billion pound pay rise. Sorry, 10 points, I can't remember the exact figure, say £10.5 billion settlement. OK, let's get you back to work. There was no sort of concession, as I understand. There was none, OK, we're going to give you this amount of dough, but we want this in return. What they should have done, with hindsight's a great thing.
It is,
What they should have done says, look, I can't give you 10 billion quid, because if I give you 10 billion quid, I'm going to have to take 1.4 billion pound off older people who cannot afford to heat up their homes this winter. We're going to give you 8.6 billion pounds. Let's have a bit of negotiation.
There's so many hard decisions to make. I wanted them to fix trains as soon as possible. I'm a regular user of our local railway, and the fact that there's so many strikes, so much industrial action is a nightmare. You can't rely on anything. And if you want to get Britain and our economy turn around, we do need workers to be able to get to their jobs. So I get that prioritisation, but you're right, I don't know, I'm no expert at industrial negotiations. Maybe there was a different strategy.
Trish, would you have paid a couple of quid extra on your weekly rail fare if it had been sold to you in binary terms? Look, we can't reduce your fare by £2 a week, but we can reduce it by £1.20 a week, because 80p a week is going to go to the pensions. Would you have made that concession?
I think I probably would have done, but you don't normally get that kind of one.
Of course you don't.
One for one quid pro quo.
I'm speaking emotionally here. You know, just an emotional attachment to a story.
I definitely think so. If you'd have told me that we could have paid more child benefit to more people if I pay a little bit more on my trains, for sure. But it's unusual for a government policy to work like that.
Well, to be fair to them, if it was ideologically driven and they were thought that they could just get rid of, kind of treat the pensions badly, there's an article here that explains quite clearly that if they did lose the pensioners, it could cost them their majority if they were to do this again. So I don't know what they're thinking. I don't really understand why it's a good idea to, take away winter fuel allowance from people who can't really afford to heat their homes. I don't understand the notion that those with the broadest shoulders would pay the highest burden, and then you target pensioners. That doesn't make sense to me at all. They don't have the heaviest or the broadest shoulders.
Do you think in 4 years' time at the next election, let's just say that they raise the funds and the Chancellor announces next year that the pensioners get their 300 knicker back, do you think that the 4 years will make people forget? Or will it always be the Maggie Thatcher milk story? Maggie Thatcher, the milk snatcher. Yeah. Will this be the legacy of Rachel Reeves, or will people forget?
I think there's a lot more coming. So, for a lot of I think they actually didn't think about the implications of a lot of their policies. I think that, and that's true for both parties, they are often in a bubble in Westminster. They don't live in the real world. None of their front bench have actually properly run businesses. So I don't think they get what's going on. I think they think, oh, well, we've got to keep on this track. They need to change course. Do you think they need to change course finally?
I have got really frustrated in the polarisation in our politics. So almost any policy that Labour puts forward, someone's going to shoot down and say it's completely rubbish. If we were in control, we would have done it better. If our economy is in the hard state that it is, and so many more people in poverty, literally driving here, underneath the bridge, there is a encampment of homeless people trying to keep themselves warm by burning rubbish, right? Yeah. Our society doesn't need this squabbling between the parties. I think a lot of those
people may well be migrants, actually, because we've got no...
Oh, well, I don't know who they are, but
because we've had a crew out talking
have you?
Some of them, yes.
Economic migrants should come over on dinghies.
A lot of them come over on dinghies, so they're all harbouring in pockets and parts of London and also other parts of this country.
But it's the Punch and Judy that I hate. Labour puts an idea forward, the Tories say how terrible it is, and Reform get involved one way or another. I would like to see a way that we can collaborate and find some positive solutions.
I think a lot of people are sick of it, actually, to be honest with you. And I think, everyone's got to pay more money and it's not good. Very quickly then, so do you trust Rachel Reeves to clear waste, yes or no?
Yes.
Danny Kelly?
No.
Not at all. All right, what about you at home? Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say. You're with GB News. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. So what do you think? Is it now time for Rachel Reeves to resign? First, let's get your latest news headlines with Will Hollis.
Nana, thank you. At 33 minutes past 3, some breaking news that's just coming into the newsroom now. 3 teenagers have been charged with murder following the death of Thomas Taylor, aged 17, who was stabbed near a bus station in Bedford on Wednesday. That's coming from Bedfordshire Police, and we will bring you more of that story as we hear it. In other news, a man has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder after a woman believed to be a hospital nurse was seriously injured after being stabbed in Royal Oldham's Hospital's A&E department. It's believed a member of the public attacked the staff at Royal Oldham Hospital with a bladed article or sharp instrument, which was not a knife, Greater Manchester Police has said. The woman, who's in her 50s, suffered serious injuries and remains in hospital for treatment. The cold weather continues. The UK Health Security Agency has extended its health alert for cold for all of England until Tuesday. Amber alerts will now run until January the 14th, meaning a rise in deaths, particularly among those aged 65 and over, or those with health conditions, is likely. That's what the agency says. Temperatures dropped to minus 13.9 degrees Celsius overnight, but the Met Office has said the cold spell is now coming to an end. To California, at least 16 people have been killed and thousands evacuated as fires rage on in Los Angeles. More than 100,000 people are under evacuation orders. Police say they've arrested 2 people who posed as firefighters to loot homes. Officials say they'll crack down on robberies and those who overcharge for services for displaced people. Gusty winds are forecast for the coming days, potentially further fueling the fires. Back to the UK, a North Yorkshire police officer has died after she was struck by a lorry as she was helping at the scene of an earlier road accident. The Mayor of York and North Yorkshire and Deputy Mayor of Policing, Fire and Crime have said that their hearts are broken. PC Rosie Pryor was standing on the verge of the A19 at Bagby near Thirsk with the driver and passenger of one of the cars involved when a lorry collided with them yesterday morning. Miss Pryor and 41-year-old Ryan Welford from Knaresborough, who'd been involved in the first collision, both died at the scene. The 65-year-old lorry driver was arrested on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving and is being released under investigation. A teenage boy who was a passenger in Mr. Welford's car is in a serious but stable condition in hospital. And finally, train managers have launched the first of a series of 5 months of strikes on a busy rail route. There are currently picket lines outside the stations, which include Euston in London, Liverpool and Edinburgh, in their walkout over a dispute over rest day working. Members of the RMT union at Avanti West Coast will strike every Sunday until the 25th of May. Regional organiser for the RMT, Cathy Mazier, spoke to GB News.
2021 they reduced all the rest days, and now they're looking for staff to work their rest days without any incentive. We're looking for a rest day payment for the hard-working train managers. We want proper safety-critical staff on the train, and they are paying their managers £400 a day to work these trains, and that is a big safety issue to us as well. So what we want is for them to come back to the table and negotiate a rest day payment.
Those are your latest stories for now. Let's get you back to Nana shortly.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, very good afternoon to you. This is your latest GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. After being in control of our weather for a good few days now, high pressure is slowly losing its grip across the UK. It's going to be sinking more towards the southeast, whereas in the northwest we've got low pressure starting to bring frontal systems in. So already starting to see some outbreaks of rain for the far northwest of Scotland, some drizzly outbreaks across Northern Ireland as well this evening. Winds here are also going to be strengthening, very gusty around coastal areas with gales locally severe into the early hours of Monday morning. Some heavier pulses of rain from the far northwest as well towards dawn. A calmer, drier night to come for England and Wales, but here it is going to be quite chilly. Some patches of frost possible for eastern Wales across areas of England as well. So as you start off Monday morning, it is generally the southeast that is going to see the calmer and generally more settled conditions. There is going to be less sunshine around on Monday compared to what we are seeing today. It will be hazier in nature as this cloud is pushing its way in ahead of this frontal system that will be sweeping its way in for Northern Ireland, more widely now into areas of Scotland. Some heavy pulses of rain around the hills, but notice how much milder it is in the northwest. Temperatures 10-11 degrees Celsius here even as we start off Monday morning. All due to those winds that are feeding in that southwesterly theme. Again, they are going to be very gusty here right throughout the day. That rain will eventually slip its way into parts of Cumbria, the far northwest of Wales, also turning damper into the afternoon. Drier elsewhere for England and Wales. Once again, widely cloudy, though temperatures here struggling around 5 to 7 degrees Celsius, but widely double digits for Northern Ireland and Scotland. This north to south contrast is going to continue throughout a good portion of the forthcoming week. Northern areas will be milder, but also generally windier, more chances of seeing some rain around at times also. In the south, whilst drier for a part, it is going to see some fog around, particularly overnight, and it will be cooler in general as well. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect And then you throw me into the mix, and trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
41 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. If you just tuned in, welcome. I'm Nana Akua. It's time now for our second great British debate of this hour. And I'm asking, is it time for Rachel Reeves to resign? As reports about the British economy continue to get worse and the Reeves recession is anticipated, could the Prime Minister save the country more financial pain by changing his Chancellor? The Treasury this week were forced to intervene to stabilise financial markets following the suggestion that rising debt costs had put the Chancellor in breach of her own fiscal rules. So it's a great British debate this hour. I'm asking, is it now time for Rachel Reeves to go? Joining me is broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly, and also director of the Sanctuary Foundation, Dr. Krish Kandiah. I'm going to start with you, Chris. Krish, even, not Chris. Krish.
It's all right.
Is it time for her to go?
I don't think so. Again, relating it back to the new appointment of David Moyes, how many games would you give him to turn things around? 6 games? 12 games? Surely you need enough time.
What he does in those games.
Surely you need enough time to bring a change, and I don't think she's had enough time. She's only had, what, 6 months?
But look what she's done in 6 months. It's been a disaster. So we can name one good thing that Rachel Reeves has done in 6 months. That has worked.
There you go. That's a good, that's a good question. You're right. I'm going to struggle to think of some good decisions that she's made. I mean, I'm even wrestling about China. I mean, China is a tough one. I get it that with all that's going on with American tariffs, we need new trade partners. But China has such a terrible record on human rights, the way the Uyghur people were treated, the way that Jimmy Lai has been treated. Yeah, OK, that's a fair challenge to me. What's a good decision that she's made?
Well, I'll give you time to ponder. Danny Kelly.
Chris and I were talking football. David Moyes just been appointed the Everton manager. I think David Moyes has a target. He's got to keep Everton in the league. And I think it's not the same with Rachel Reeves. I think Rachel Reeves should go, but there's not a cat in hell's chance she is going to go. She was appointed by Keir Starmer. Everything that Rachel Reeves did through the budget was given the green light by Keir Starmer. If Rachel Reeves is to resign or maybe forced to go, although that would never happen, because it's going to look terrible on the big boss, which is Keir Starmer. It's going to look awful. And then all of a sudden the right-wing press will say, well, why did you appoint her? You should go, because you made that disastrous decision to appoint her, and look at the disaster that's unfolded now. Look at the pensioners, the farmers, the VAT. Yeah. Even the Lib Dems. The Lib Dems are calling for Rachel Reeves to come back from China, Cathay Pacific, get yourself over to Heathrow, get back at work. You're in charge of the numbers, you're in charge of the till. The Lib Dems are saying there needs to be a plan B.
Do you think that she is, in a way, running away? This would have been organised
no, I don't.
a long time previous, by the way.
No.
Do you think that perhaps she got things in the wrong order? If you're going to grow an economy, you start with the growth side of it, rather than starting with the taxing side of it. Because if you start with the growth, then people... It's like when you're delivering bad news. You start off with something nice. You know what I mean? You do, don't you? You don't start off with, oh, it's terrible and this and that, and then you say something nice.
So they call that a crap sandwich, don't they? Something nice, something horrible.
The use of that word there. But yes, I mean, that's it, isn't it? So you start off with the good things, and then you do the other bad things. Do you think that the naivety of them, they just simply got it the wrong way around?
But they're always going to go back to their default setting. The £22 billion black hole. We didn't know about this.
Danny, surely
£22 billion.
Every incoming government does that. They blame the previous government, and that's part of the problem.
I think
We're
they
losing
knew about
trust in politicians.
I don't think they...
It's like a script.
Chris, I don't think this was breaking news for them.
The 22 billion?
I don't think it was. No, they had plenty of time.
14 years in opposition to get it right.
Let me give her the benefit of the doubt. I think what she's trying to do is make tough decisions to turn the economy around. And willing to take unpopular decisions to do that. This isn't a popularity contest they're trying to win. They're trying to turn an economy around.
Well, it is actually. It is a little
they've
bit.
just won an election, so they're as popular as they're ever going to be.
No, it is a popularity contest because the markets rely on confidence.
That's true.
And if you are popular, and like the markets were confident in Rishi Sunak's direction, which is why what he did, he actually steered the ship into a good direction.
That's
and
right.
left a 0.7 growth economy, as opposed to a 0.0 now, which has been delivered in the last 6 months. So the markets rely on confidence and popularity and the feeling of success, and this is not happening.
I struggle to engage with the premise that they had to turn the country round. Don't forget what we've been through. Ukraine, billions thrown at Ukraine. COVID, billions, and some people would say foolishly thrown at people, businesses during lockdown. And then don't forget inflation, which was 7 or 8%, was down to the low 2 point something. The good ship finances was going in a good direction. And so for Labour to say we've got to turn it all round, I don't accept the premise of that.
Well, they kind of turned it round, but turned it towards the rocks. Thank you for your thoughts. But what do you think? gbnews.com/your say. Now, if you are in search of some winter sun, then here is the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're about to jet off to the Mediterranean for some winter sun, then west is certainly best at this time. It's high pressure that's in charge across parts of Iberia into southern France to provide relatively fine conditions at the moment, but further towards Italy and around the Adriatic towards Turkey as well, we've currently got some heavy rain, even heavy snowfall across inland areas. This will be continuing over the next couple of days or so, but is expected to ease during the forthcoming week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Right. Well, just before we do the cross over to Life Worldview, Chris, have you had time to think about something good that Rachel Reese has done? We'll leave it there. Coming up, Worldview, we're crossing live to Tel Aviv to speak to Mr. Foreign Procurement Geller, who will reveal to us why Donald Trump is so keen to buy Greenland. That's next.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Lauren, let's start with this, shall we? How children's TV may be harming, not helping young minds.
Yeah, so this is an article in the Express today, a big double-page spread as a result of some new research in a new book that's coming out by a child psychologist, saying that children's television, and I think perhaps more importantly, the way that children consume television and video product now is perhaps not as healthy for them as we would hope it would be, and there's quite some distance from children's television of the past, of the sort of the Bagpuss and Clangers and Ivor the Engine era. And I think what's interesting about this is particularly the how children's television is consumed angle, because children are now put in front of screens significantly more often than they were, certainly when I think we were growing up. The content that they are consuming is not great for their brains and their learning and development, which Floella Benjamin of children's television fame is now leading a big crusade to say that some of this is really, really bad for children.
These days, they're not watching the TV that we all watched when we were growing up. They're not even watching GB News in the morning.
What are they thinking?
Would you believe it? But they are watching this absolute drivel all day long on YouTube, and because obviously all our TVs are now connected to the internet, or they're getting TikTok on their TV. It's not even, so they don't even necessarily have to have smartphones or iPads. They can just watch this stuff on TV, and it is rubbish. They are watching it and they're obsessed with it. Oh God, Skibbity Toilet or something. Have you heard of this?
No.
No? Well, you'll have viewers who have got who are parents of sort of 13-year-olds, and this Skibbity Toilet thing is, they're all obsessed with it, and this is a really annoying sort of theme tune or thing that they sing at you.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. If you just tuned in, welcome on board. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. It's time now for Worldview. Let's cross over live to Tel Aviv, where joining me, Mr. Fire and performer Uri Geller. Uri Geller, welcome. Uri, what's on your mind?
OK, look, Nana, and all your viewers. Now, I can't believe that the biggest story in town right now, from a political point of view, is not the Middle East, but Greenland. Even I did not see that coming. Donald Trump wants to take over Greenland. It might sound crazy, but there is a very serious point behind all this. And I'm going to tell you how I can help solve this crisis. First, let me tell you why this matters to all your viewers, and even you, Nana. I want you and all your viewers to look at your phones. Right now, look at your phones. Now look at your TV screens. And if you've got a laptop, look at that too. Even your electric car, if you have one outside, look at that too. Why am I telling you this? Because all the technology you own is powered by rare earth minerals. Now, China already controls most of these minerals, and there are many more deposits in the Arctic region, especially in Greenland. If China gets its hands on them, then it will have complete dominance. Not only that, but Russia, China's ally, is massively boosting its presence there and has already deployed a fleet of nuclear-armed submarines. Look at this map. Look. By the way, you have to understand that we mean what we mean by the Arctic region. We're not talking about the North Pole. We're talking about places like Greenland, Norway, Sweden, even Canada. But believe it or not, China has already declared itself an Arctic state. That is a fact. Now, Donald Trump's plan does not seem so crazy after all. The Arctic threat from Russia and China affects all of us, and he wants to stop it. So here is my plan. As you know, I own an island off Scotland. It's called Land. I'm offering Donald Trump the right to use my island as a U.S. military base. I own, by the way, 12 kilometers of the waters around it, and the seabed too. And believe it or not, the airspace above, and that's legal. Donald can send the U.S. Navy there. It is less than 2,000 miles from Greenland. Donald, this is a serious offer. You know, an F-16 could get from my island, from the aircraft carriers to Greenland in less than an hour. Let me finish by saying, I love the people of Greenland. I wish them peace. Everyone, all around the world, peace. And Nana, as usual, I send you all love from Israel, the Holy Land.
Lovely to talk to you. That is Uri Geller. That's his thoughts. Donald Trump could potentially buy his little island in Scotland, although I don't know whether he'd be allowed to do that. I wonder if our government would say something about that. But that's Uri Geller's thoughts on why Donald Trump is interested in buying Greenland. Well, stay with me because on my way, my niggle, well, I'll be taking on Tulip Sadiq head on. Now, you really couldn't make this up. Labour's anti-corruption minister has been investigated for, yes, you guessed it, corruption. That is on the way next. as ever, send me your thoughts. Post your comments, gbnews.com/your say, or why not download the GB News app. It is completely free and you can watch all the programmes on this channel. But stay tuned, my monologue on Tulips Are Deep is on the way next. But first, let's get an update with your weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good afternoon to you. This is your latest GB News weather updates provided by the Met Office. After being in control of our weather for a good few days now, high pressure is slowly losing its grip across the UK. It's going to be sinking more towards the southeast, whereas in the northwest we've got low pressure starting to bring frontal systems in. So already starting to see some outbreaks of rain for the far northwest of Scotland, some drizzly outbreaks across Northern Ireland as well this evening. Winds here are also going to be strengthening, very gusty around coastal areas with gales locally severe into the early hours of Monday morning. Some heavier pulses of rain from the far northwest as well towards dawn. A calmer, drier night to come for England and Wales, but here it is going to be quite chilly. Some patches of frost possible for eastern Wales across areas of England as well. So as you start off Monday morning, it is generally the southeast that is going to see the calmer and generally more settled conditions. There is going to be less sunshine around on Monday compared to what we are seeing today. It will be hazier in nature as this cloud is pushing its way in ahead of this frontal system that will be sweeping its way in for Northern Ireland, more widely now into areas of Scotland. Some heavy pulses of rain around the hills, but notice how much milder it is in the northwest. Temperatures 10-11 degrees Celsius here even as we start off Monday morning. All due to those winds that are feeding in that southwesterly theme. Again, they are going to be very gusty here right throughout the day. That rain will eventually slip its way into parts of Cumbria, the far northwest of Wales, also turning damper into the afternoon. Drier elsewhere for England and Wales. Once again, widely cloudy, though temperatures here struggling around 5 to 7 degrees Celsius, but widely double digits for Northern Ireland and Scotland. This north to south contrast is going to continue throughout a good portion of the forthcoming week. Northern areas will be milder, but also generally windier, more chances of seeing some rain around at times also. In the south, whilst drier for a part, it is going to see some fog around, particularly overnight, and it will be cooler in general as well. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Don't miss your chance to win our biggest cash prize ever, an incredible £50,000. That's tax-free cash to spend on anything you like this year. What would you spend it on? £50,000 could buy those treats you've always dreamed of having. And just one entry into the Great British Giveaway really could make £50,000 cash all yours. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Now, in the first Film Awards ceremony of the season, the Golden Globes 2025, we need to get used to that, commenced overnight.
Stephanie Tetchy to talk about all of this.
Good morning.
Morning.
Well, we know the Oscars are like the creme de la creme of film award shows, but it's the Golden Globes which sets the trend, because who we see picking up on the Golden Globes, we tend to see picking up at the BAFTAs, at the Oscars. So last night was a good indicator of what's to come. I would say it was a big year for musicals. We've had this film, Emilia Perez, starring Selena Gomez Gomez, Zoe Saldana. It's about a Mexican drug cartel who changes gender, and it's an operatic musical. So the plot sounds crazy, and in fact, it's a musical as well. It was a big night for Demi Moore.
Oh, I love
At the
her.
age of 62, she's just picked up her first film award for The Substance, Best
Well done
Actress.
to her.
It's an amazing film. Ellie, I know you're a big fan of Wicked.
Yes, I watched it for the second time yesterday.
I think I'm about to watch it for the third time because it's that great. Last week, it eclipsed Mamma Mia to become the highest-grossing film for a Broadway musical. Unfortunately, it wasn't a big night for their acting, including Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo. They totally got snubbed for awards, but it did win Best Cinematic and Box Office Achievement Prize. It was a big night for the Brits. Baby Reindeer, Richard Gadd, he picked up for the Best Limited Drama Series.
I'm surprised at that because Baby Reindeer's a bit dark.
That's a lot of people ask him, how has this film got so much success when it's based on a dark plot? And he says, you know what, it's basically human life.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. It's just gone 4 o'clock. Now, in the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me for the next few hours, Director of the charity Sanctuary Foundation, Dr. Chris Candia, and also broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. Coming up, Rachel Reeves said that she'll launch a war on waste to stabilise the public finances amid growing disquiet from her MPs over her handling of the economy. So I'm asking, do you trust Rachel Reeves to reduce government waste? I've got a poll up live on the GB News website. Please head over there and cast your vote now. Coming up in my niggle, I'll be taking on Tulip Sadiq head on. You couldn't make it up. Labour's anti-corruption minister has been investigated for, yes, you've guessed it, corruption. Despite Sir Keir Starmer saying this in the summer.
I'm absolutely determined to restore honesty and integrity to government because I think that is core to ensuring that people appreciate that politics can be a force for good.
And in the interview, I'll be speaking to the award-winning filmmaker Andrew Drury. He'll be here live. He's credited with being the journalist who knows ISIS bride Shamima Begum the best.
I think people never believe anything about you, or... What about your mum?
I don't know.
Your mum
I don't have any messages. I'm like tired of giving messages and not being believed.
He's on the way, but before we get started, let's get your latest news with Will Hollis.
Nana, thank you. At 4:01, some breaking news for you. 3 teenagers have been arrested on suspicion of the murder of a 17-year-old in Bedford. Thomas Taylor was stabbed near a bus station on Wednesday. Bedfordshire police arrested a 17-year-old and 2 others aged 18 on Friday. They are being questioned in custody. A 60-year-old man was arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender, but was released on bail pending further inquiries. Police say they've increased patrols in the area following the absolutely shocking incident. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has accused the Health Secretary of attempting to conceal the reality of the grooming gangs after he claimed the public discourse could risk vilifying entire communities. Wes Streeting had said the rhetoric around grooming gangs risked causing a second New Zealand mosque massacre. Mr Farage told The Telegraph that Mr Streeting's remarks were insulting. That's now as Labour MP Dan Cardin has broken ranks from Sir Keir Starmer, joining Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Manchester, in his calls for a national inquiry into the scandal. Fury over grooming gangs was reignited this week after Labour blocked a national inquiry backed by Kemi Badenoch and tech billionaire Elon Musk. Science Secretary Peter Kyle told GB News Labour are dedicated to making a change for victims.
bill that we introduced into Parliament this week, the Child Welfare Bill, had as its central commitment multi-agency cooperation for fact. We would deliver it, and the Conservatives tried to stop it. Now, we didn't just introduce this on the back of a national debate that's happened in the last fortnight. We planned this bill in opposition. We have been drafting it in government. We implemented it last week. There are things we are doing and actions we're taking, and we will continue to do so and deliver for those victims.
The Chancellor will lead a new drive to tackle waste and inefficiency across the public sector in an attempt to get back on the front foot after a week of turmoil in financial markets. Writing in The Telegraph, Darren Jones, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, said officials will work with the private sector to embrace their ideas and expertise and innovation to further our public services. As part of the drive to clamp down on unnecessary spending, Rachel Reeves has been criticised, though, as she visits China to boost relations with the nation. The Tories accusing her of having fled to China rather than explain how she'll fix the UK's economy. Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride told GB News the Chancellor's judgment has been very poor.
Should not be in China at the moment, talking to the Chinese in the way she is, saying that she's got this £120 million a year additional funding coming into the UK economy, given that the moves in the bond market recently, partly at least, substantially at least, because of the decisions that she's taken, is costing us an estimated £12 billion pounds a year. That's enough to fund 300,000 nurses, for example. So, no, I think her judgment has been very poor, and very poor judgment around the budget, which is why we are in that situation.
The cold continues as the UK Health Security Agency has extended its cold weather health alert for all of England until Tuesday. Amber alerts will now run until January the 14th, meaning a rise in deaths, particularly among those aged 65 and over, or those with health conditions, is likely. Temperatures dropped to minus 13.9 degrees overnight, but the Met Office has said the cold spell is coming to an end. And your final story for now, a North Yorkshire police officer has died after she was struck by a lorry as she was helping at the scene of a road accident. The Mayor of North Yorkshire and York and Deputy Mayor of Policing, Fire and Crime said their hearts are broken. PC Rosie Pryor was standing on the verge of the A19 at Bagby near Thirsk with the passenger and driver of one of the cars involved when the lorry collided with them yesterday morning. Miss Pryor and 41-year-old Ryan Welford from Knaresborough, who'd been involved in the first collision, both died at the scene. The 65-year-old lorry driver was arrested on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving and has been released under investigation. A teenage boy who was a passenger in Mr. Welford's car is in a serious but stable condition in hospital. Well, those are your latest stories. For now, let's get you back to Nana.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon. Welcome. This is GB News. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Remember this.
I'm absolutely determined to restore honesty and integrity to government, because I think that is core to ensuring that people appreciate that politics can be a force for good.
Yeah. Where do we start? Tulip Sadiq. You couldn't make it up. Labour's anti-corruption minister has been investigated for, yes, you've guessed it, corruption. Tulip Sadiq, the Labour MP for Hampstead and Highgate, is the niece of 77-year-old dictator Sheikh Hasina, who leads the Awami League Party and is the longest-serving Prime Minister of Bangladesh. Now, she is Tulip Sadiq's aunt and was outed last year after serving 15 years in the hot seat. Her aunt had a, shall we say, interesting record when in power. Apparently many of her opponents were attacked and arrested, imprisoned, and some even wound up dead. Tulip, despite apparently trying to distance herself from her aunt, accepted a London flat, reportedly given to her by a person who had links to her. Now, ironically, Tulip's brief includes countering economic crime, money laundering and illicit finance. Yet she was reportedly given the two-bedroom property near King's Cross in 2004, and land registry documents revealed that she had not paid for the property and that Abdul Motif, a developer with links to, yes, you guessed it, her aunt, had given it to her. Not dodgy at all, eh? I mean, seriously, have you ever been given a house or a flat by someone? I haven't. Does that sound a bit odd to you? And last week, it was revealed that Tulip accepted freebies for 2 Cricket World Cup matches a few years back, which she correctly recorded in the Register of Interest from a company with links to her aunt's party. Tulip has since referred herself to the independent advisor of ministerial standards. Sir Keir Starmer said, Tulip Sadiq has acted entirely properly by referring herself to the independent advisor, as she's now done, and that's why we brought into being the new code. It's to allow ministers to ask the advisor to establish the facts. And yes, I've got confidence in her, and that's the process that will now be happening. But then, why hasn't he come down hard on Jazz Athwell, Labour MP for Ilford South, the largest landlord in the Commons, who set up a licensing scheme which he himself was in charge of and then didn't bother to adhere to, leaving his tenants in mould and ant-infested flats. Despite Angela Rayner promising to crack down on dodgy landlords, he's still in place. So why hasn't Sir Keir Starmer cracked down on him? Why hasn't Jazz Athwell been punished? You can't be a corruption minister and then potentially be involved in corruption. Remember ex-Transport Minister Louise Haigh, sacked from the cabinet for a dodgy episode with a mobile phone resurfacing. Do you remember that?
The game is up. You cannot be a lawmaker and a lawbreaker. And it's time to pack his bags. Only then can the government function again. Only then can the rot be carved out. Only then can we restore the dignity of that great office.
Are you beginning to think that we've been had? I've just got to play this again.
I'm absolutely determined to restore honesty and integrity to government, because I think that is core to ensuring that people appreciate that politics can be a force for good.
Yet he's one of the biggest freebie takers. I'm afraid this Labour government are turning out to be worse than the Conservatives, and that's not easy. And it's only been 6 months. God help us. So before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. Pressure is mounting on Sir Keir Starmer to sack Treasury Minister Tulip Sadiq after calls for a corruption investigation into her London properties. Then, in my Great British Debate this hour, I'll be asking, should Tulip Sadiq be sacked? My second Great British Debate, I'll be asking, will a national inquiry into the grooming gangs vilify Muslim communities? All of this after Wes Streeting made some comments and Reform UK leader Nigel Farage accused Health Secretary Wes Streeting of attempting to cover up the truth about grooming gangs. Then we'll be getting the latest from America as we cross live to Los Angeles and speak to Paul Duddridge, the host of the Politics People podcast. All of that coming up. As ever, send me your thoughts. Post your comments at gbnews.com/your say. Well, I'm joined now by political commentator Rebecca Reid. Rebecca, welcome to the programme. Thank you for joining me. So, come on, this is yet another episode that has surfaced where Labour have promised to be full of integrity, and suddenly we find out that, in fact, Tulip Sadiq may have some very interesting dealings. Where do you stand with this?
Well, I think to say it's yet another is a little bit unfair. I think you gathered together three examples which don't really all belong together. I think Jazz Athwell is the most compelling. I think you are right about that, and I think not getting rid of him is quite shocking. And also, there's now an article on Novara Media about his accusations of sexual assault and how that played out. So I think he probably is, in my opinion, potentially a bit of a bad actor and somebody the Labour Party perhaps should get rid of. Louise Haigh is a different conversation. She resigned. She wasn't sacked, as you said previously. So I think that's a different conversation, but she went. Tulip Siddiq is, again, quite a different conversation. And I think it's important to keep in mind that there is an investigation going on. She referred herself. If the investigation does find that she is guilty of anything, then of course she should resign or be sacked. But at the moment, what we understand is that she was given a flat when she was 21 years old. And while I think lots of us might feel that that's like a staggering level of privilege, when you're 21 years old, if somebody offers you a flat, it's not particularly surprising that you might take it. I certainly would have done. I would have bitten someone's hand off. And she wasn't an MP at the time. She wasn't in politics at the time. So I think we have to wait for the results of the investigation.
But she also accepted some tickets, didn't she, to some cricket matches where Bangladesh were playing, and these were given to her by people from a company that had links again with her aunt.
But she declared that, and she was honest about it at the time. And again, I'm not sure that it was necessarily the most sensible thing to have done, but she hasn't tried to hide it. And I think because her aunt was so significant and so powerful, the amount of people who have connections to her aunt is going to be very significant when you're dealing with companies. I mean, I think there's a good discussion to have about what MPs should be taking full stop at all. But I don't think that a company having links to the Prime Minister is particularly surprising. It's just unfortunate for Tulip Siddiq that she happens to be related to somebody who transpired to be fairly unsavoury, but then that's not really her fault.
But then it begs the question, and the point of the monologue was actually about the integrity that they claimed that they were bringing to the table in the political arena. And it turns out that a lot of them are involved in things that some would say seem quite dodgy, and some things as well make them kind of appear worse than the Conservatives. They came on a plinth of being, they're better than them, and I was hoping that they would be, to be fair, but this is not what we're seeing, is it? I mean, surely you couldn't... Do you think that they are on a par with the Conservatives, or in your view, do you think potentially they may well be worse?
No, I think they're probably better. I think it's a little unfair to compare many, many years of the Conservatives to the short amount of time that the Labour Party's been in power. But I don't think that we're looking at a comparable level of issues here. I think there are issues in how MPs are allowed to take and make secondary incomes, and also how MPs are allowed to take freebies. But I think that's consistent across both sides of the parties. But no, I don't. I think if we look at the examples that you gathered in the monologue, apart from Jazz, who I do think really should go, I don't think that Louise Haigh or Tulip Siddiq are proven to have done anything that's particularly morally abhorrent. And I think they are, generally speaking, a pretty good bunch of people trying to do a good job. You might not agree with how they're doing it, but I don't think these are bad people. I really genuinely don't.
But you point out it's a short amount of time, but in this short amount of time, it literally seems to be one thing after another. The Conservatives it took a while for certain scandals and things that they did to emerge, but let's be fair, they were there for at least 14 years. But these guys have been there for 6 months, and already I could list at least 5 people who have done things, in such a short space of time. Literally, I mean, it's unprecedented.
I think the rate is pretty comparable. I think the amount of... Again, also, it depends what you regard as an important scandal, right? Like, I still don't understand the outrage about Partygate. I was never bothered by that before. I remain unbothered by it. However, the amount of stories that came out about that again and again and again was extraordinary. And I think, actually, the pace at which these stories come out is the same for Labour and for the Conservatives. And to be honest, that pace is set by the public interest of these stories and the news cycle. I think for as long, these stories will come out with the same kind of regular sort of metronomic heartbeat, because every morning we have to come up with stories to put on the front page, and therefore looking for any kind of bad behaviour. And I don't think that I really don't think that Louise Haigh, for instance, is a fair comparison. That was a genuine accident that happened many, many years ago, is the same as like Chris Pincher. Not all scandals are created equal, but the appetite to read bad things online and in the papers is the same. So I sort of blame us a little bit as much as anything else, honestly.
I was going to say Partygate's a piece of cake compared to all of this. Sorry, I thought that was quite good. No, but listen, the problem with Louise Hay was that she also parroted the narrative that lawbreakers can't be lawmakers. And, you know, she, again, stood on the plinth of integrity. And then this thing comes out from, you know, and it's all very dubious. The whole story is very dubious, to be honest. And, again, it shows the calibre. Yeah, she may have paid the price for it and everything else like that, and it was a spent conviction. But if you're going to say that lawbreakers can't be lawmakers, and then you have broken the law yourself, at some point, it doesn't look good.
I think a lot of Keir's problem come from rhymes. I think his name rhyming with so many things like free gear, not good. And I think coming up with the lawbreakers can't be lawmakers was not a good thing to say, because one of the best appointments they have is the guy who runs Timpson's, whose whole policy is having people who have broken the law get back into jobs and back into work. And the idea that you can't be in a high-level position because you've previously broken a law is actually one that I find very uncomfortable to start with, because what about redemption? Like, the whole idea is that actually how great if you can go from being a lawbreaker to being a lawmaker. So I think their mistake was to come up with that rather twee and silly expression, not to have people who have previously had. And, you know, there are plenty of people who I find the Reform MP who has a conviction of violence against a woman, I find that very, very uncomfortable. But my policy remains, people can be rehabilitated, and anybody should be able to be an MP if they have served their time for anything they've done. So I don't think the issue here is people's past, certainly Louise Haig's accidental mobile phone snafu, but I do think the issue is that they shouldn't have said something as stupid as lawbreakers, lawmakers, because every single time anything comes up, even if it's somebody not wearing a seatbelt 20 years ago, well, then it's very easy to point and go, well, lawbreakers can't be lawmakers. You've really painted yourself into a corner with that one, Keir.
Well, I think that's the problem with a lot of it. Rachel Reeves, thank you very much for talking to me. Rachel Reid, I almost called you Rachel Reeves. Rebecca Reid. Sorry, Rebecca. Sorry about that. That was... forgive me. Well, MP for Ilford South, Jazz Athwell, has said, I'm profoundly sorry the tenants have been let down, and we'll be reviewing the property management and how matters are escalated going forward. He's also been cleared for sexual harassment and any wrongdoing by the Labour Party, and has said that he was the victim of a politically motivated process. But that still doesn't quite explain why he hadn't paid for licences for half of his properties when he set that whole policy in play. Well, maybe he's got something to say about that. You're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is the GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Next, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should Tulip Sadiq be sacked?
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Now, we're going to introduce you to Liam Wildish. Liam, well, I'd like to think he's a friend of mine because I follow him on Instagram, on TikTok there as well.
You're a big fan, aren't you?
Big fan, because there's what he does. He's a cleaner. He cleans signs. But the thing is, he's not employed by councils or whatever. He does this voluntarily. And you sort of think to yourself, well, who cleans these signs? Why have these signs been allowed to get into this terrible state of disrepair and filthiness?
So, basically, long story short, about 6 years ago, I used to be a window cleaner. In the community where I lived, I noticed all of the road signs were filthy, and I was perfectly equipped to clean them. So, basically, I cleaned the road signs as a bit of a thank you to the community and sort of make a little bit of awareness of my window cleaning business at the time. Yeah. Sort of cleans up the area, makes the road safer, and that's kind of how that started. And people found it like a really satisfying sort of approach. So that sort of led on to today of a video in cleaning the dirty road signs and making sort of satisfying content with it as well.
What is the equipment? What have we got here?
So this is a water-fed pole system connected to a backpack, which is what feeds the water through the end of the brush there. It's perfectly equipped to basically remove this green dirty, it's like a mildew build-up that you get on the signs. Yeah. As you can see, this is like extremely effective at removing so.
So GB News viewers, if they spot a particularly grisly sign in their area, then they can get in touch.
They can do, yeah.
And Liam Wildish, the sign guy, can sort you out.
If you find Liam the sign guy online, drop me a message, let me know. and I'll add you to my list of places.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. It's coming up to 24 minutes after 4 o'clock. If you've just tuned in, where have you been? You've almost missed half the show. But I'm glad you're here now. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. It's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should Tulip Sadiq be sacked? Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride has mounted pressure on Sir Keir Starmer to sack the Treasury Minister. Tulip Sadiq, after calls for a corruption investigation into her London properties. Number 10 says that the Prime Minister will act on the findings of an independent investigation before making a decision. So for the Great British Debate this hour, do you think that perhaps Tulip Sadiq needs to go? Again, another one. Joining me now is broadcaster Danny Kelly, and journalist, of course, and director of the Sanctuary Foundation, Dr. Krish Kandiah. Danny Kelly.
I think, listen, I'm a great believer in democratic outcomes and investigations. And I think it's too early to demand that she be fired. I really do. I think we need to see what she is, in inverted commas, guilty of doing. I was listening with great interest to Rebecca, who was saying that this has happened 21 years ago, and I think that is a consideration that when I was 21, I was a lot different to I am now.
Really? Did you have hair?
I had more hair than you, although it was going a little bit thin. So yeah, so look, I was a different individual then. And if she was just given a property, said go and live there. There was a 21-year-old. She said, wow, London? Yes, please, I'll go and live there. But then we need to think about the passage of time, and now she's a Labour MP. She's been a Labour MP since 2015. These are skeletons in her closet. But I just can't get my head round firing someone until we know what she's done.
So what, you know, and what about the tickets then? Because she accepted some tickets from a company that were linked to her aunt. Her aunt isn't really a very nice character.
I remember Keir Starmer was in this ticket gate recently for I can't remember what. Oh, no, it was Taylor Swift.
Oh, the Taylor Swift. Well, that's another one. Actually, it was Arsenal and Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift. So
that would have been a game. That would have been a game.
It's all of it. It's all of it.
Taylor Swift versus Arsenal.
So invariably,
he had a box at Arsenal, there, didn't he?
Did he? He had a box.
So that's the other
security, man. Security.
Yeah, but he wasn't the Prime Minister then, was he? Or was he the leader of the opposition?
They said that perhaps he could have a box because he's Prime Minister now. But if you think about Rishi Sunak, who was Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak stood in the stands, and so does the Prince. So does Prince William. So
that's right.
Can do the
Look,
same.
people throw tickets at people. People in the know throw tickets at MPs. Anyway, but they need to know what's in return for them. No one gets thrown anything unless they want something in return. So hopefully maybe the outcome of the investigation will find out the person who threw the tickets at her, did they benefit in kind?
All right. What do you think, Krish?
Well, I'm with Danny. I think someone is innocent until proven guilty. She has an important role trying to fight corruption, so it really matters that she's squeaky clean. She has handed herself over to the independent advisor on ministerial standards. That's exactly the right thing to do. I don't believe in guilt by association because she has an auntie who was a pretty unsavoury Prime Minister.
But the tickets came from a company that was linked to her aunt. So that is, you know, her aunt is...
As your interviewer said, like, which company isn't going to be connected in some way to the Prime Minister of the country? So that... I don't think
there's plenty of companies that are not connected to a Prime Minister of a company, of a country, especially a dictator.
Well, I noticed that you said that we're seeing the same level of corruption as we might have seen in the previous government.
I think we're seeing more.
I don't think the scale is the same.
But I think
I don't think the scale is the same.
I think
if you're
bigger.
comparing a pair of glasses for Keir Starmer and some suits and some Arsenal tickets...
So it's about £30,000, £30,000
right,
worth.
Compared to £15 billion worth of PPE that was given to dodgy contractors.
Well, let's talk about...
That's another level,
let's talk
surely.
about the 10 billion then, or the 9 billion that they they gave to striking workers without even any negotiation.
Yeah, that's not a corruption scandal, though, is it? That might be a misnegotiation.
The PPE, I don't think you can say that was fully corruption, because that's not been proven. And also, they may well have been given people contracts who they knew, which in a crisis like that, you might do that.
Yeah.
But that's not excusing it.
Sure.
But it's not.
Look,
it's not
even if you were going to
direct.
compare, receiving some cricket tickets to Partygate, you mentioned that in your interlude before. Lovely little joke on a piece of cake. Look, that lost credibility for our government trying to handle a global epidemic. The same with the trip to Barnard Castle to test out his eyesight.
Rebecca Reid,
lives were lost as a result of that.
Reid wasn't bothered about the piece of cake that Boris didn't eat and the drink that he didn't drink.
But it was about public confidence in our leaders. Look, I think
you said the scale of it. Let's talk about the scale of it. Yeah, Louise Haigh, Transport Minister, they all said lawmakers can't be lawbreakers, and then it turns out that she had broken the law years previously. OK.
Sure, misreporting a lost phone. Look, I think
not misreporting a lost phone, because we don't even know. I mean, I'm slightly wondering whether the phone actually went somewhere. I don't believe anything.
Yeah, I don't think it's as innocent as misreporting a lost phone. If my memory is correct, I understand that she was told to go no comment during a police interview. Now, why would you go no comment during a police interview if you wanted to protect something?
And also, 2 people reportedly, and this is from Sky News, who knew her at the time, said that she just wanted an upgrade on her phone. Now, that was something that I read in the paper.
I believe your version of events over my new friends.
So I'm afraid. Do you know what I mean? And that's quite a big...
I guess I would challenge the equivalence, that the scale of what's going on is the same as what was previous.
Keir Starmer has literally had the highest bill for freebies than any of the MPs, even Boris.
I'm not sure that's true.
I think it is.
I think even the wallpaper was more expensive than what we're talking about.
That was a loan.
The PPI scandal, though, we were in such a situation which was PPE, sorry. We were in such an unprecedented situation where the government had to try and find some PPE equipment. Now, it turns out months and years later that there was something negatively affected with that. But at the time, governments from around the world were screaming for this PPE. And if a business said, look, I can provide it you, but on my terms...
I'm scared a lot of people made a lot of money under really difficult circumstances.
Correct. You're right.
They did, but that wasn't direct sort of...
But does that mean corruption?
I don't think it does.
It doesn't look great.
Look,
I think we need to fight corruption everywhere. I think we need integrity in our government.
Right.
I don't think there should be an opportunity for point scoring between parties, because we live in a culture where anything that you do is an opportunity for the other side to kind of grab you and get you. And I think...
but Chris, they stood on a plinth of integrity. I played the clip of Keir Starmer saying how he's going to clean up,
I saw that
clean up
twice.
politics.
Yeah,
I had to play it twice because it was important that we hear what they were promising to deliver us. And I'm saying that within 6 months, all of this has been uncovered, and they don't look any better. In fact, I think they look worse.
The rogue landlord, if I may call him, the rogue landlord, he's got, like, multiple properties, Labour MP. Now, Labour, they sell themselves on looking after the vulnerable, the needy, the poor in society. And you've got a guy with multiple properties who is just doing anything but looking after his tenants.
Yeah.
It's the antithesis of what Labour stands for.
The challenge is, every time you point a finger at someone else, there's 3 pointing back at you. And every time Conservatives go, oh, there's corruption, we look again at their record. I think we do need this independent report to come out and find out if she's guilty. If she's guilty, for sure she should go, but innocent until proven guilty.
Well, though, because, you know, I'm a landlord. I've been a landlord for a very long time, and only by accident, not really, because I met somebody, so I kept my property and then moved off.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to sell it because I wasn't going to buy a house with them. So I actually rent now myself. And I, as a landlord, over the period of time, am very well aware of what's going on in my property, even when it has gone to a management company. And I'm not buying into the fact that he had no idea. That's just me personally. That's my view. And also, the licensing scheme that he set up when he was a councillor and not yet an MP, that scheme, some of his properties hadn't yet been... he hadn't paid the licences for. Now, he would argue that maybe they're in the process of it. But you pay a licence before the licence expires.
Oh, that story stinks. It really stinks. And these are vulnerable people who need rooms, houses of multiple occupancy, and apparently they were just, you know, filthy properties, unhygienic, unsafe.
On the TV, it was on Panorama.
Yeah, unsafe, unhygienic, squalor, people living in squalor, and he's a Labour MP.
Yeah.
He
I
must
can't
have-
excuse that.
And in my view, he must have known. Even if he says he doesn't, I'm sorry, but I'm not buying it.
I don't buy that.
Being a landlord myself, I know that these things you will be told about something. No one would hide that from you, especially in such a prominent position. But just a reminder, former Transport Secretary Louise Haigh said in a reply, under the advice of my solicitor, I pleaded guilty despite the fact that this was a genuine mistake from which I did not make any gain. All right, well, just coming up to 33 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. Still to come, loads more. We're discussing whether there should be a national inquiry into grooming gangs and also will this vilify Muslim communities? Don't forget as well, Andrew Drury, the person who knows Shamima Begum, one of the journalists who knows her, probably one of the best, will be joining me live. But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Will Hollis.
Thank you, Nana. At 33 minutes past 4, some breaking news in the last hour. 3 teenagers have been charged with suspicion of murder of the 17-year-old in Bedford. Thomas Taylor was stabbed near a bus station on Wednesday. Bedfordshire police arrested a 17-year-old and 2 others, aged 18, on Friday. They're being questioned in custody. A 60-year-old man was arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender, but was released on bail. Police say they've increased patrols in the area following the absolutely shocking incident. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has accused the Health Secretary of attempting to conceal the reality of the grooming gangs after he claimed the public discourse could risk vilifying certain communities. Wes Streeting had said the rhetoric around grooming gangs risked causing a second New Zealand mosque massacre. Mr Farage told the Telegraph newspaper that Mr Streeting's remarks were insulting. That's now as Labour MP Dan Cardin has broken ranks from Sir Keir Starmer, joining Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham in his calls for a national inquiry into the scandal. The UK Health Security Agency has extended its cold weather health alerts for all of England until Tuesday. Amber alerts will now run until January the 14th, meaning a rise in deaths, particularly among those aged 65 and over or with health conditions, is likely. Temperatures dropped to minus 13.9 degrees overnight, but the Met Office has said the cold spell is coming to an end. And your last story for now, a North Yorkshire police officer has died after she was struck by a lorry when she was helping at the scene of a road accident. The Mayor of York and North Yorkshire and Deputy Mayor of Policing, Fire and Crime have said that their hearts are broken. PC Rosie Pryor was standing on the verge of the A19 at Bagby near Thirsk with the driver and passenger of one of the cars involved in the incident when a lorry collided with them yesterday morning. Miss Pryor and a 41-year-old named Ryan Welford from Knaresborough, who'd been involved in the first collision, both died at the scene. The 65-year-old lorry driver was arrested on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving and has been released under investigation. A teenage boy who was a passenger in Mr. Welford's car is in a serious but stable condition in hospital. Those are your latest headlines. We'll be back in a few minutes.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, very good afternoon to you. This is your latest GB News weather updates provided by the Met Office. After being in control of our weather for a good few days now, high pressure is slowly losing its grip across the UK. It's going to be sinking more towards the southeast, whereas in the northwest we've got low pressure starting to bring frontal systems in. So already starting to see some outbreaks of rain for the far northwest of Scotland, some drizzly outbreaks across Northern Ireland as well this evening. Winds here are also going to be strengthening, very gusty around coastal areas with gales locally severe into the early hours of Monday morning. Some heavier pulses of rain from the far northwest as well towards dawn. A calmer, drier night to come for England and Wales, but here it is going to be quite chilly. Some patches of frost possible for eastern Wales across areas of England as well. So as you start off Monday morning, it is generally the southeast that is going to see the calmer and generally more settled conditions. There is going to be less sunshine around on Monday compared to what we are seeing today. It will be hazier in nature as this cloud is pushing its way in ahead of this frontal system that will be sweeping its way in for Northern Ireland, more widely now into areas of Scotland. Some heavy pulses of rain around the hills, but notice how much milder it is in the northwest. Temperatures 10-11 degrees Celsius here even as we start off Monday morning. All due to those winds that are feeding in that southwesterly theme. Again, they are going to be very gusty here right throughout the day. That rain will eventually slip its way into parts of Cumbria, the far northwest of Wales, also turning damper into the afternoon. Drier elsewhere for England and Wales. Once again, widely cloudy, though temperatures here struggling around 5 to 7 degrees Celsius, but widely double digits for Northern Ireland and Scotland. This north to south contrast is going to continue throughout a good portion of the forthcoming week. Northern areas will be milder, but also generally windier, more chances of seeing some rain around at times also. In the south, whilst drier for a part, it is going to see some fog around, particularly overnight, and it will be cooler in general as well. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 39 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. Don't forget, download the GB News app. It's completely free. You can check out everything on the channel. I'm Nana Akua, and it's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, will a national inquiry into grooming gangs vilify Muslim communities? Reform UK leader Nigel Farage accuses Health Secretary Wes Streeting of attempting to cover up the truth about grooming gangs. He warned irresponsible and coarse public discourse could lead to more atrocities against Muslim communities. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, will a national inquiry into grooming gangs vilify Muslim communities? Well, joining me now, broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly and the director of the Sanctuary Foundation, Dr. Krish Kandial. Krish, what do you think? Are you Muslim? Are you...
I'm not, I'm Christian, actually.
Christian?
But this subject really matters to me. I'm a foster parent. We've looked after 30 children over the last 18 years. Many of those children have experienced sexual abuse and violence. And for me, I don't care what background you are, whether you're white or brown, Asian, Muslim, Christian. If you've committed a crime against children, then you need to be punished. But I am nervous that this whole conversation has been used as a political opportunistic moment, that there is a very wealthy man sat in America who seemingly can't sleep, and he'll get angry about, you know, this rightful subject, grooming gangs, but his focus on it, I'm not convinced it's actually about the welfare of children. I think he has found a kind of opportunity for a further culture war rather than thinking, how can we actually serve kids?
Aren't you doing exactly what you're saying he's doing, though, by taking what he's saying? So if we take him genuinely, he's drawing attention to something that really should have been exposed and dealt with many years ago. Well, so, hold on. So for you to then see it as him doing this, are you not drawing the attention away from the actual thing?
I don't think so.
Sorry, and focusing on him?
Well, everyone can see that he's the instigator. It's because of his focus that we are looking at this now.
Good.
The ISCA report came out 2 years ago, and the Conservative government had an opportunity to put its recommendations into practice. Do you know how many they put into practice?
Well, none.
0, OK? Kemi Badenoch was the children's minister at the time, OK? So she has specific responsibility for caring for vulnerable children. On her remit was fostering, adoption and child protection. She, according to the best records I can find in Hansard, never mentioned this thing. So why are we talking about it now? We're talking about it now because Elon Musk has put a focus on it.
So that's good. So why are you saying that he's done
Kemi Badenoch is calling for Kemi Badenoch's calling for...
So why are you saying that Elon Musk is politicising something when you've just also said that he's highlighted something that is really relevant? He's not really politicising it, is he? He's bringing to the fore something that the Conservatives missed and the Labour Party, well, probably wouldn't have done anything more about it had not he highlighted it.
They just had a bit of legislation this week forcing people to have to report when they think there's been sexual abuse.
But that doesn't...
So they were doing something about it. They were putting ISCA into practice. How is that not doing something about it?
That doesn't specifically target and talk to the people who've been abused at Oldham and in all those other locations. It doesn't specifically, does it?
Look, I find it interesting.
That's like after the event.
I find it interesting that we're asking for...
Danny Kelly, get him. Danny.
The question is about are these comments inflammatory and are we going to vilify communities? Is that what the question...
That is right.
Yeah. OK. Wes Streeting has just reminded us why we are in this situation, because what he is doing is trying to silence legitimate concern by saying you can't criticise that community.
Just in case.
Just in case some lunatic goes into a mosque and blasts a load of prayer goes...
or does something awful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but he actually used the New Zealand attack as an example, and 50 worshippers were killed by some lunatic in New Zealand. He is silencing criticism and legitimate observations in exactly the same way. 1,500 young girls were raped in Rotherham because of a cover-up, because people were frightened and scared to talk about it, because the perpetrators had brown skin. And he's now doing exactly the same. Don't talk about that in case this happens.
Well, he would argue that he's doing that because he doesn't want disquiet, he doesn't want unrest, he's trying to protect all parties on this. So he's trying to say, hold on a minute, let's hang fire before we start hurling out abuse to each other. And he's worried, if you think about the riots in July, which I know, I don't necessarily agree with some of the things that Keir Starmer said as a result of them, but he claimed that the wording on Twitter and X instigated some of the violence. And so that's, I think, what they're alluding to. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I do think that hurty words, or, I think a lot of it was hurty words, but he's coming from that angle.
Are these communities being vilified? I'm going to go back to the question. These communities, generally speaking, are segregated communities, and I don't think it matters one jot. It's not going to make any difference to those communities if we are talking about this now in this particular way. Those communities are segregated. If you have come from the West Midlands, if you go to Birmingham, there are segregated areas. Their lives are not going to be changed one jot by this latest report.
Well, actually, I spoke to Khadija Khan. She was on yesterday. She is... She grew up in Pakistan. She was born in Pakistan, grew up there, then came to this country. And her point was this, that it seems that politicians take the most extreme element of the conversation about the, say, Pakistani grooming gangs and suddenly almost apply it as a generic to the majority. And the majority of people from Pakistan think it's awful, horrendous. Yeah. But this tiny minority seem to take up so much of the energy, and the politicians almost focus their legislation based on the views of this small minority, and that was the point that she made, which I thought was quite eloquent.
Look, I think Elon Musk is a genius. Absolute genius. What he's done with SpaceX and Tesla and the Boring Company, you name it.
Chatting about your electric car earlier.
I was. I am a fan of his technical expertise. He sometimes gets so fixated on something. Do you remember when there were those Thai teenage footballers stuck underground?
Yes.
And Elon says, I'm going to send a mini-sub in. And the rescuers who were putting their lives in danger said, actually, thanks very much, Elon. Mini-sub's not going to work. It's hard enough getting a diver through, let alone a mini-sub. And then what does Elon do? He accuses one of the divers who rescued at great risk to his own life, called him a pedo.
Oh, come on, listen.
Do you remember that?
I do remember that,
so if you care about children, why are you accusing someone who's risking their lives for being a pedo?
Hold on, listen, stop it. When I ask you to stop, just be quiet. Right, well, listen, I don't know about that particular incident, so I'm going to... we'll move back from that because, you know, that's not really relevant to the conversation we're having right now about this specific issue.
It is relevant.
And he's not also...
Because...
Hold on. He's also not here to defend himself. Right, well, there we go. That's Dr. Chris's first time. Dr. Chris Candia and also Danny Kelly. Right, a government spokesperson from the Home Office issued the following statement. No child should ever suffer sexual abuse or exploitation, and it is paramount we do more to protect vulnerable children, which is why we are working at pace across government to drive forward real action. 47 minutes after 4 o'clock, you're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is the GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, we'll be getting the latest from America. We'll cross live to Los Angeles and speak to the host of the Politics People podcast, Paul Duddridge, for Worldview.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
TikTok chefs, Instagram chefs, that they put children off or young people off of cooking because it's so expertly done they can't do it. No, my young lad, he's 17, he is amazing in the kitchen. Oh, he is. He's amazing in the kitchen. And he gets it all off TikTok. He comes down, he can put burgers, wraps, stews, curries, sauces, and the smells in the kitchen. I said, where'd you get these? Oh, just TikTok, I'm trying it out. And it's just amazing the things that he can conjure up. So for some people, it might be... it's an inspiration for him. So they're saying that's intimidation. For my boy, it's an inspiration. They say it's entertainment. For my boy, it's an infomercial. I watch him doing his stuff. At that stage, I could do baked beans on toast and knock up a salad. That was it. But my boy can do all sorts of stuff.
It makes it accessible as well, doesn't it? Because lots of people say, like, you need an education to be in the kitchen or you need to go find yourself loads of cookbooks. But you don't.
No.
Just go on your phone now.
Well, I mean, like, all the spices, sesame oil. I mean, I'm amazed at the stuff that he does. So it's encouraging. All you just need is a kitchen well-stocked and have a go. And understand that failure is actually the route to learning. I mean, he's made mistakes, he's stuck stuff in the bin, but that young man, I am amazed at some of the stuff he does.
I don't mind cooking at all. It's cleaning up that I have the problem with. Dawn, let's talk about sex.
Can I just say there are things called restaurants, by the way? Just put that one. My hell, I don't even know where the kitchen is.
OK.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Right, let's travel over live to America. Let's have a chat to the host of the Politics People podcast, Paul Duddridge. It is time now for World View. All right, first of all, I want to talk to you, Paul, about Trump blaming the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, for the LA wildfires.
Yeah, when Trump was in office last time, he talks about a water declaration bill. There's a lot of back and forth and conjecture on this. But Trump did try getting Newsom to sign a water declaration bill that Trump claims would have supplied a lot more water, but the governor refused to sign or implement any of this bill because of the danger that would be for the Delta smelt, a fish. And so water that would have come and absolutely lubricated a lot of the fire-torn areas is now being dumped into the Pacific Ocean instead. And we wonder why we have empty reservoirs on Tuesday night when this horror began. And so, yes, Trump is doubling down on this every day. And you know, he seems to have the paper trail. And this is not the end of a Trump administration. Remember, he's going to be in office in a week or so. So I think we'll actually be able to see the whole point of his argument being brought to the fore. I mean
weren't Harry and
California
Meghan going to see people and seeing if they're all right after the fires? I mean, after their house wasn't burnt down, they went to see other people.
Yeah, every cloud. It's wonderful that somebody's benefited. I can't be cynical about it. Yes, they have what some might describe as photo opportunities, but they do seem to be helping people who've been stricken in the fires by distributing food, goodwill, and largesse. So let's not be too cynical about some of the motives from celebrities in California, because all help is needed. You know, all hands to the pump.
But there was that one house that wasn't burned down because of the way it was constructed. Quite incredible. They should all be built like that. Now, listen, Trump is planning to sign 100 executive orders in day one. Really?
Day one. Yeah. Now, if you look at this, you know, it might not mean very much to most people, but on Biden's first day, and remember, they wanted to completely overturn the Trump administration. Biden's first day, he signed 17 executive orders. I think he had a nap straight after, so he might have been able to do more. Who
Maybe
knows?
he forgot.
But Trump is signing. Yes, exactly. Trump is signing 100. He's planning to sign 100 on day one, and they will be basically covering things like border, mass migration or mass repatriation, and.
Very quickly, Bannon vows to keep Musk out of the White House. Very briefly, you've got about 20 seconds. What is this?
Yeah, but we talked about this last week. Bannon and Musk, no love lost. Bannon talking to an Italian newspaper saying he is going to do everything he can to keep Musk out of the White House, that he won't even get his blue badge for access all areas in the White House if he's got anything to do with it. He really doesn't approve of Musk supporting this work visa for the tech industry, this H-1B1 visa.
Paul Dudridge, we need more time. We'll do it next time. We'll have more time. Thank you very much, Paul Dudridge, host of the Politics People podcast. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. This is GB News. Plenty more still to come. But first, let's get an update with your weather.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good afternoon to you. This is your latest GB News weather updates provided by the Met Office. After being in control of our weather for a good few days now, high pressure is slowly losing its grip across the UK. It's going to be sinking more towards the southeast, whereas in the northwest we've got low pressure starting to bring frontal systems in. So already starting to see some outbreaks of rain for the far northwest of Scotland, some drizzly outbreaks across Northern Ireland as well this evening. Winds here are also going to be strengthening, very gusty around coastal areas, with gales locally severe into the early hours of Monday morning. Some heavier pulses of rain from the far northwest as well towards dawn. A calmer, drier night to come for England and Wales, but here it is going to be quite chilly. Some patches of frost possible for eastern Wales across areas of England as well. So as you start off Monday morning, it is generally the southeast that is going to see the calmer and generally more settled conditions. There is going to be less sunshine around on Monday compared to what we are seeing today. It will be hazier in nature as this cloud is pushing its way in ahead of this frontal system that will be sweeping its way in for Northern Ireland, more widely now into areas of Scotland. Some heavy pulses of rain around the hills, but notice how much milder it is in the northwest. Temperatures 10-11 degrees Celsius here even as we start off Monday morning. All due to those winds that are feeding in that southwesterly theme. Again, they are going to be very gusty here right throughout the day. That rain will eventually slip its way into parts of Cumbria, the far northwest of Wales, also turning damper into the afternoon. Drier elsewhere for England and Wales. Once again, widely cloudy, though temperatures here struggling around 5 to 7 degrees Celsius, but widely double digits for Northern Ireland and Scotland. This north to south contrast is going to continue throughout a good portion of the forthcoming week. Northern areas will be milder, but also generally windier, more chances of seeing some rain around at times also. In the south, whilst drier for a part, it is going to see some fog around, particularly overnight, and it will be cooler in general as well. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be joining the Great British Giveaway list of winners with your chance to grab a fantastic £50,000 in tax-free cash.
Hi, I'm Angela from Wigan and I won £30,000 with the Great British Giveaway. I'd say to people who want to enter or are wondering whether to enter to do it, it happens to people like me.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
We were talking earlier about the issue of Siri listening to you. Well, it's not just your own conversations being sort of harvested for data. But it's a problem with AI. So what seems to have happened yesterday is that Apple issued a alert saying that Luke Littler had won the darts before he had. I mean, imagine what would, if he then gone on to lose, how that would have looked. I mean, obviously, because he went on to win, at least they got the story right. But before it had happened. So what it seems to happen is that the AI farms existing stories. And what it has done, that's the alert. We can see the alert there. Now, and it also claiming that Brazilian tennis player Rafael Nadal had come out as gay when actually a different Brazilian tennis player was actually mentioned in the original story. So what it does is you see that it's branded as BBC Sport. What the Apple AI system does is it farms alerts that it thinks people are getting from the source and then summarises them into one alert.
It looks to me like you would assume, OK, the BBC are reporting this.
Absolutely.
So the BBC News might be saying something else.
So it could happen to any news organisation.
This has highlighted a massive issue. I mean, having editorial judgment and quality control, because if this is going on, it's just contributing to the flow of misinformation. Yes. And we know that this is a problem on social media, people reporting false things. But if it seems to come from trusted news sources, that is a massive issue in credibility. I mean, if you had something like Reuters, who's a big news provider, doing this, you could hold people accountable, you could make changes, but when it's the AI doing it, I mean, what do? You're going to have to reprogram it in some way.
And if you just lost control, if you're a news source, you've lost control of what goes out because it basically farms it, puts your logo on it, and sends it out, even when it's nonsense.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course, it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me for the last hour, Director of the Charity Sanctuary Foundation, Dr. Krish Kandiah, and also broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. Rachel Reeves said she's going to launch a war on waste to stabilise public finances amid growing disquiet from her MPs over the handling of the economy. So for the Great British Debate, I've been asking, do you trust Rachel Reeves to reduce government waste? I've got a poll live on GB News on the website. Head over there and cast your vote. In my niggle, I took a swipe at Tulip Siddiq. You couldn't make it up. Labour's anti-corruption minister is being investigated for, yes, corruption, despite Sir Keir Starmer saying this in the summer.
I'm absolutely determined to restore honesty and integrity to government, because I think that is core to ensuring that people appreciate that politics can be a force for good.
If you missed my niggle, you can catch it live on gbnews.com on our social media as well. And in my interview coming up, I'll be speaking to award-winning filmmaker Andrew Drury. He'll be live in the studio. He is credited with being the journalist who knows ISIS bride Shamima Begum the best.
I think people never believe anything about you, or... What about your mum?
I don't know.
Your mum must...
I don't have any messages. I'm tired of giving messages and not being believed.
He'll be up very shortly, but before we get started, let's get your latest news with Will Hollis.
Good afternoon. Your top stories at 5 o'clock. The trust that oversees the Royal Oldham Hospital has said it is shocked and saddened by the stabbing of a nurse in its A&E department. The 37-year-old has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. It's believed that a member of the public stabbed the A&E worker with a sharp instrument yesterday, but not a knife, according to Greater Manchester Police. The woman, who's in her 50s, suffered serious injuries and remains in hospital for treatment, and her injuries are believed to be life-changing. In other news, 3 teenagers have been charged with the murder of a 17-year-old in Bedford. Thomas Taylor was stabbed near a bus station on Wednesday. 18-year-old Ahmed Adam and 2 other males aged 16 and 17, who can't be named because of their age, have been charged with his murder. A 60-year-old man was also arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender but has been released on bail. They've also been remanded into custody and will appear at Luton Magistrates Court on Monday. Detectives have made 3 more arrests over the weekend. Bedfordshire Police say they've increased patrols in the area following the absolutely shocking incident and continue to appeal for information. To politics, Nigel Farage has accused the Health Secretary of attempting to conceal the reality of grooming gangs after he claimed the public discourse could risk vilifying certain communities. Wes Streeting had said the rhetoric around grooming gangs risked causing a second New Zealand mosque massacre. Mr Farage told the Telegraph newspaper that Wes Streeting's remarks were insulting. That's now as Labour MP Dan Carden has broken ranks from the Prime Minister, joining Andy Burnham in his calls for a national inquiry into the scandal. Fury over grooming gangs has reignited in recent weeks after Labour blocked a national inquiry backed by Kemi Badenoch and tech billionaire Elon Musk. Science Secretary Peter Kyle told GB News Labour are dedicated to making a change for victims.
Bill that we introduced into Parliament this week, the Child Welfare Bill, had as its central commitment multi-agency cooperation for fact. We would deliver it, and the Conservatives tried to stop it. Now, we didn't just introduce this on the back of a national debate that's happened in the last fortnight. We planned this bill in opposition. We have been drafting it in government. We implemented it last week. There are things we are doing and actions we're taking, and we will continue to do so and deliver for those victims.
The cold weather continues as the UK Health Security Agency extends its health alert for all of England until Tuesday. The amber cold health alert will now run until January the 14th. That means there could be a rise in deaths, particularly among those aged 65 and over who have health conditions. Temperatures dropped to minus 13.9 degrees overnight, but the Met Office has said the cold snap is coming to an end. To Los Angeles, at least 16 people have been killed and thousands evacuated as fires rage on in California. More than 100,000 people are under evacuation orders. Police say they've arrested 2 people who posed as firefighters to loot homes. Officials say they'll crack down on robberies and those who overcharge for services for displaced people. Gusty winds are forecast for the coming days, potentially further fueling the fires. A North Yorkshire police officer has sadly died after she was struck by a lorry while helping at the scene of a road accident. The Mayor of York and North Yorkshire and Deputy Mayor of Policing, Fire and Crime said their deputies are broken. Pardon me, that was meant to say their hearts are broken. PC Rosie Pryor was standing on the verge of the A19 at Bagby near Thirsk with the driver and passenger of one of the cars involved when the lorry collided with them yesterday morning. Miss Pryor and 41-year-old Ryan Welford from Knaresborough, who'd been involved in the first collision, both died at the scene. The 65-year-old lorry driver was arrested on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving and has been released under investigation. A teenage boy who was passenger in Mr. Welford's car is in a stable condition in hospital. And your final story for now, train managers have launched the first of a series of 5 months of strikes on a busy rail route. There are currently picket lines outside of stations including London Euston, Liverpool and Edinburgh in their walkout in a dispute over rest day working. Members of the RMT union at Avanti West Coast will strike every Sunday until the 25th of May. Let's hear from Kathy Mazur, the regional organiser for RMT.
2021 they reduced all the rest days, and now they're looking for staff to work their rest days without any incentive. We're looking for a rest day payment for the hard-working train managers. We want safety critical, proper safety critical staff on the train, and they are paying their managers £400 a day to work these trains, and that is a big safety issue to us as well. So what we want is for them to come back to the table and negotiate a rest day payment.
At 7 minutes past 5, you're up to date. Here's Nana.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon, it's 8 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, Ed Miliband has been accused of having an obsession with net zero targets that is leading to higher and higher energy bills for ordinary consumers. Climate scientist Paul Burgess and meteorologist Jim Dale join me for another fiery debate. Then, in my Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is Elon Musk, is he having a negative impact on British politics? According to a new poll, just over half the British public think exactly that. And in the interview, I'll be speaking to award-winning filmmaker Andrew Drury. He's credited with being the journalist who knows ISIS bride Shamima Begum the best. And of course, Supplement Sunday. My panel and I will discuss some of the stories that you've missed. Stay with me, including a trendy pizzeria charging £100 for a pizza with pineapple on it. Why do you think that is? Send me your thoughts, post your comments at gbnews.com/your say. So, research has revealed wind farms were paid £400 million last year to turn off their turbines during high winds. Now, that alone added around £13 to household bills. Well, as we all know, Ed Miliband, Energy Secretary, is firmly set on aggressively pursuing a green agenda using our taxes. But has it got to the point where we need to rethink the net zero? I mean, really seriously, why is it taxpayers that have to pay so much of this? Isn't it up to us to decide whether we really want to go in this direction? Joining me now, climate scientist Paul Burgess and also senior meteorologist and social commentator Jim Dale. Jim Dale, I'm going to start with you. So, wind turbines, in your view, are they a good thing?
Yeah, they've always been a good thing. Let's just say, first of all, it's not Ed Miliband on his own, remember. 98% of the House of Commons supports net zero. It is in law. And therefore, he's pushing ahead with what the House of Commons voted for. In terms of wind vanes, in terms of the renewable energy per se, of course it's necessary. And why? Because this week has been a fiery week, to say the least. Extreme devastation in Los Angeles in terms of what's gone on. Climate induced without a shadow of a doubt. Nothing to do with arsonists or anybody else. The background, the foundation is all there. As well as that, we've had 5 or 6 data reports from the various meteorological agencies that have all reported that we surpassed 1.5 degrees. It's now 1.6 degrees since the Industrial Revolution. It's a one-way street. The graphs show it. I've been on this program many, many times and other programs, and it's not just me who's saying this. It's 99% of scientists say it, etc. So there's every need to continue what we're doing. Otherwise, we're going to get another Valencia, we're going to get another Los Angeles, and whatever else is going on around the world. And do you know what? There's that many of them. I'm starting to lose count. It's inevitable now, and sooner or later, it's here. And it's only 2.5 years ago, by the way, that we saw wildfires in southeast England whilst we got the all-time record temperature of 42.3 degrees.
All right. All right,
This
well,
is stacking up. Join the dots.
All right, well, I've joined them up, and they didn't really come to that. Look, 98%, you said 98% of the government support net zero. They may support net zero, but they may not support wind farms, which is the point we're discussing. So, sorry, let me just get to that. Also, you said the fires in LA, 99.9% were caused by climate and not arsonists. We don't know that yet. I mean, isn't that what you were saying? We don't know that for sure.
No. I'm basically saying that the foundation for the fires, for the fires that we've seen, was laid down by two things. Well, three things in actual fact. The first one being the rainfall that accumulated over a period 8-9 months ago, which was flooding type rainfall. Now that made the fauna, all of the forest, etc., around us, the shrubs, all grow to tremendous amounts. Then we went into a drought situation in Los Angeles. No rain for the last 6-7 months, and a blazing hot summer. So there's your foundation. It doesn't matter whether it's an arsonist, whether it's a lightning strike.
Well, it does. Well, I think it. No. It does matter whether it's an arsonist or not, because if the third thing in that isn't there, then there's no fire. Paul Burgess.
Well, you know, California used to have droughts in the past of hundreds of years. If you look at the history of droughts and the hydrology, you know, the situation in America there, far, far worse in the past. Now, I want to make something very clear, and it's common sense. Since 1850, when just before that the Thames was freezing over, since then we've gone up by 1.5 degrees, let's say. Right? If we've done that totally to the benefit of all mankind, that warming has been super good for all mankind. It hasn't been bad. So I don't know whether these people want us to go back to the Thames freezing over and to poverty and starvation, because that was the past. The worst droughts were way back then. So you have to look at the data. You have to look at the science, not the latest newspapers or the scare. Now, as regards wildfires, for example, NASA themselves say they've reduced. That's NASA looking down at the Earth from satellites. All the data's there, presented it many times. You know, but the big thing today is this. The British public are being asked to believe not the evidence of their eyes, not the evidence of their ears or their pocket. They're being asked to believe that somehow this wind energy that Jim has claimed up to 9 times cheaper at times, I can explain that, but it's not. It's more expensive. And in fact, if you took the last 5 years, well, the 5 years up to about November 24, if you take that period and you actually pretend we had no wind power, just gas, we'd have saved £18 billion. I've got the graph there, right?
Yeah,
the graph is there, and so on. So there's a huge, gas is much cheaper than wind. Now, what people say is the gas price establishes the price of the energy. It doesn't. The contract for the difference price for wind farms, and by the way, the journalist who said 400 million this last year is wrong. It's just on $1 billion this last year we paid to switch off wind farms. Just under $1 billion. But that's going to rise tremendously, because as we're increasing all this wind power, we're not going to need it at times, and we still have to pay for it under that.
But Paul, don't we need an alternative, though, just in case we run out? Surely we should be making the most of the wind and the sun and all the things that we have. I wouldn't rely on 100%, but surely we should do something.
We should, we should. We should be fracking and nuclear. Basically, that's what we should be doing. Yes, we should be using gas reserves. We have enormous amounts of them, and we should be using them. But that Parliament is talking about, has passed legislation about fracking, where they don't understand in science what a logarithmic scale is. So they didn't understand. They've actually asked for the vibrations caused by fracking more sensitive by 3,500 times than America. I mean, they're technically illiterate, along with anyone who really has to study this subject scientifically. There is no doubt. Look, we have just beaten Germany at something. We've beaten Germany at being the most expensive electricity in the world, and yet we're asked to believe the exact opposite.
Thank you. Look, Paul, have you not seen the price of natural gas on the open market in Europe? It's at record levels. That's one of the reasons why energy prices are up. The other one was Putin before that. So let's not blame renewables for the price of this. The one thing I would say to you is well done for coming on, first of all. You're the only guy of the 2% of deniers in this country, man-made climate deniers within reform. No, but basically, I've been chasing Reform MPs because they're basically scared. Since the election, since we've had the catastrophic events around the world, trying to get one of them to talk about climate change is impossible. And so I thank you for coming on and being brave and doing that, because you are on the mark. You're getting more marginalised by the day by what's going on.
Well, he is a climate scientist and also a commentator.
Well,
so
he's not. He's
he is. No, he is, Jim. Just like the same as you being a meteorologist, yeah? Otherwise, we don't want to go into that one.
Okay.
Final word to you quickly, Paul Burgess. You've got about 10 seconds.
Look, I was in charge of water resources planning for a whole country and all the monitoring of the data. When Jim quotes temperatures like he quoted there, 40.1, that's at Heathrow. Do you know something, Jim? You probably don't know this because you read the thermometer, you don't understand it. When you look at a Stevenson screen, unless there's 1 metre a second of wind passing through, according to the standard, right?
We'll let him finish. We'll let him get to the end of it.
miles an hour at 10 metres, unless that wind's passing through, it overreads. Yeah. So when we get a high like we just had, right, and you get the sun in the summer, it's going to overread by a big margin, which is why the World Meteorological.
Just let him get to the end of it, Jim. Jim, let him finish, please. Then we've got to move on.
Only 13.7% of the UK Met Office gauges are accurate to within 1 degree, let alone 5. Some of them, like...
Listen, I think I've heard enough. Thank you. No. I think I've heard enough. Jim Dale, Paul Burgess, thank you very much. They'll never agree. Next, stay with me. In my interview, I'll be speaking to award-winning filmmaker Andrew Drury. He is credited as being the journalist who names ISIS bride Shamima Begum the best. He's next.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
And fashionistas are keen to see which new trends are set to hit the catwalk.
Well, our next guest is very well placed to share her predictions with us after being a contestant on hit ITV series Dress the Nation, as well as being an upcycling and sewing consultant.
Wow. Joining us now is Tendai Murewe. I want to go back to you appearing on the ITV Dress the Nation.
Right.
Tell us about that experience. What was that like?
Oh, that was one of my highlights as a upcycling consultant. I learned to sew in my kitchen 5 years ago. And then, during COVID, just making masks. Then the next thing I was on a Dress the Nation, making dresses in front of TV. Yeah, it was just incredible. I think we all had all these clothes that we have, but we don't know what to do with them. So mainly I started with men's jackets, taking off the sleeves and putting it like a print on.
I've tried this. I've tried taking off my sleeves before. I now have about 3 jackets with no sleeves. I never managed to put them back on.
You need to come to a workshop. You need to come to a workshop.
I need an upcycling consultant. 2025, what can we expect fashion-wise?
I think bold prints are back. People are loving. I think you walk on the streets in frollals and oversized men's jackets.
So the exact opposite. We have drastically underperformed this morning. You're just saying not like us.
We just woke up this morning and thought it's winter, it's cold, it's grey.
Grey, miserable.
Is that not the way to go?
No, it is. It's still, I think because fashion is expressive. It's whatever you want to express yourself.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support. It's you that make us the People's Channel. As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions, and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, 21 minutes after 5 o'clock. If you've just tuned in, where have you been? Fine, no, you're here now, and it's all good because you have arrived at the interview. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. And joining me, award-winning filmmaker Andrew Drury. Now, Andrew is widely credited with being the journalist who knows the ISIS bride, Shamima Begum, the best. Now, Shamima left the country as a teenager to join the Islamic State group in Syria. And she is barred from returning to the UK. In fact, she has had her citizenship withdrawn. But recently, Nigel Farage has said that the government should consider taking her back. Let's have a listen to Andrew in action.
For me to send back to people at home, what would it be? If you said, because you think people never believe anything about you, or what about your mum?
I don't know.
Your mum must. Your mum.
I don't have any messages. I'm like tired of giving messages and not being believed.
What? Even to your own family?
Yeah. If I give a message to my family, I want it to be face to face, not
okay.
over the media. You know, that's very
well,
private.
Maybe then I could give that private message for you one day.
No, it's very. My family are very private people, and I respect their privacy.
Yeah, but
so
I mean, they must, as a mum, she must be wanting to know if you're safe or anything. Because my daughter would be, I'd kind of mainly want to be.
I guess she
safe.
just like watches the media and hopes that a day never comes where she hears that I die.
Well, I'm pleased to say that Andrew is with me live in the studio. So, Andrew, I'm going to cut to the chase and get straight in at what your thoughts were when you met Shamima Begum. Talk to people about what you thought initially and then how your thoughts about her changed.
When I first met her, I thought, firstly, I didn't think I was going to be able to meet her. So it was euphoria. It was like meeting somebody that was perhaps a celebrity because all the journalists, nobody tried to get to her before, couldn't get to her. So for me, I was kind of keyed up because she agreed to speak to me. I even ended up my first meeting feeling sorry for her. I gave her a cuddle. I offered her my hand and then she said, can I have a cuddle? And started crying. I kind of viewed her the same as my daughter. My daughter's the same age as her. So I left there probably campaigning for her. And I thought that she had been groomed and I felt really sorry for her when I got home. Soon that changed. Really? What changed about it? It changed because on numerous occasions I revisited and we started sending text messages to each other. Because she had a phone in there and I exchanged numbers with her. And I think it was one text message out of hundreds and hundreds of messages. Once, when I was there, she showed me a picture of her daughter, which was in her purse. It was a picture, this kid had chocolate all around its face, and it was a happy scene. So when I got home, I had a brother who died at a young age, and it scarred me for the whole of my life. I sent a message, I said, Shamima, I feel so sorry that you've lost 3 children. She said, oh, don't worry about that, I'm over it now. But sometimes when they put food over the face of the child, it's sometimes there to mask things as well. Possibly. She said it was a cooking scene between her and her husband, who she later went on and said used to beat her and was abusive to her. When I first met her, she loved him. 6 months later, 7 months later, he beat her. So she changed her persona from time to time, from little to little. And then the breakdown I saw on the meetings I had, she was then become a bit of a diva. If I was talking to another prisoner in there, she'd run off, have a tantrum. And then just one or two things, it just little by little, her personality changed. And then she started becoming, from this apologetic girl, she became a victim. Change was complete. Became a victim. Now, so what do you think of Nigel's comments? Because he said it's very difficult for us to think we should take back people, Shamima Begum and others, and instinctively, it's not something I want to do. I've never wanted to. I've instinctively never wanted to, but I'm now thoughtful. I'm thoughtful. I don't classify her as an ISIS and all-out ISIS killer. What do you think? I am furious. I would love to have Nigel here today so I can tackle him about that. Not a full-out ISIS killer. Do you know what this woman, this girl that we all sort of think, oh, is she, she might have been groomed, she sold suicide vests. But do we actually know that? Yeah, we do, that's factual. How do you know that? Because her phone got taken when she was taken from Baghouz, when she was escaping the bombing. That was the only time she did try and escape. She had her phone taken off her and the evidence was there. And she was part of the religious police. Everybody knows it. There's eyewitnesses in that area. People I know that's what she did. She would have most definitely would have been a part of the death of innocent Syrian people. But she has denied doing any of that. Of course she has. She must come home. Well, but that's what she said. She has denied that she did those things. I'm looking at you in the eye now, and I see a nice, pleasant person. When I look at Shamima in the eye, sometimes. When I look Shamima in the eye, last time I saw a nasty, manipulative, evil human being. And I'd like to tell Nigel that. Why do we want her back anyway? I know why. I know the Americans are putting pressure, because I know that because I speak to the camps still now. They want to take 2,000 American troops who are defending them camps away. So Nigel would have had pressure for us to empty our camps and bring them home. That's what it is.
Do you think,
so the Americans can leave?
But perhaps he may be, because we are also dealing with the huge grooming gang scandal, and he may well be looking at Shamima and thinking, well, actually, maybe she was groomed, which I presume there probably was an element of that to it. Maybe his stance has slightly changed because of what he's seeing now in terms of grooming. I mean, that's just another option.
Totally different, isn't it? It's totally different. I mean, she wasn't groomed in the first place. In my opinion, she wasn't groomed. She went there looking for it. Her age, it's only her age of saying it should have been a year later, it wouldn't have been grooming, would it?
Yeah, but I hear you, but she was only 15, and whilst my daughter at 15 is very kind of confident and act all right, give it that, there is a slight childy element to her still, where she's quite naive. But she wouldn't go off with ISIS, that's for sure.
I've got one. What about the Manchester bomber? Was he groomed? Because at 14, 15, he went off and saw ISIS and then blew up all those lovely children. Do we feel sorry for him? Was he groomed? Should we have a little bit of sympathy for him?
I'm not feeling... Listen, I don't think she should come back. I'm not thoughtful. I have made up my mind. I don't want her back here.
No, nor
but
do
I'm presenting another part of the argument because some people may see it that... Because I know Maggie Oliver talks about a lot about grooming, and I know from many of the things that she said that she considers that Shamima was groomed.
Well, in my view, she wasn't. And not only that, we talk about Shamima, because that's all we seem to speak about. Do you know how many girls are in that camp that would have had the same process as she had? There's 19 girls in that camp. One of them, I think, are called the Evil Twins. That's what the girls in the camp call her. Where are we going to put all these girls? We're going to have the same sort of tolerance with them and bring them back? What about in Hull camp, where I went to, men's camp? Probably 100, 150 ISIS fighters. We're going to have them back too? And where are we going to put them all? Belmarsh is full. No, can't put them there. Or what sort of security prison are we going to build one? We're going to have military-style security for these people? I don't want them back. Let them face trial in Syria and let them do prison in Syria or move them somewhere else.
But the worry is that she'll find some way of coming to this country, probably by dinghy, and nobody who comes here by dinghy goes back.
Well, I'm telling you, ISIS are back in Raqqa now because the Damascus prison... we've got rid of Assad and all the prisons have been freed and everyone's celebrating on TV, Assad's gone. Well, they freed a load of ISIS prisoners, so now they're back in Raqqa. So maybe Shamima might go back to her own kind and she might end up back in Baghuz or Raqqa, where she'll be welcome.
But there is a human story to it, that she was very young when she went off. Now, my view is that she should never be coming back here. But there is that side of the story. And also, she did lose 3 children whilst she was there. I know you said that she sounded like she wasn't bothered, but, any woman who loses children would have some sort of...
Any woman would, but she faced no trauma. I never saw any trauma with her. So maybe she's not a normal woman. Maybe she's not. One person or people that I think should come back are the kids. There's loads of children there. Because you talk about radicalisation and the people in that camp are OK, but from the first time I met these kids, they were coming up cuddling me. 2 years later, they're throwing rocks at me. So they're getting information about the West that they don't like. So I was at risk from the kids as much, but I think the children should come back. Birth of British children or ex-British children in a camp, they're innocent. I feel sorry for the children.
So what's next? Are you planning to go back there to talk to her, or...
I've been asked by media outlets to go back. I want to have it out with her. I really do. So if anybody out there want to pay me to go, I'll go. I'll go to Syria and I will face her. She's contacted me only about 5-6 weeks ago asking for money. So she obviously doesn't hate me as much as she should, because there was I had a message come on my phone and trying to sell her story and pretended it wasn't her, but it was her, because it's saying call signs, for $300, and gave me a bank account in Libya. And funny enough, our government, although I had this bank account and this address in Libya, weren't interested. So it's a place she's getting money from Libya, Shamima.
But you don't have evidence of that?
I do, on my text on my phone.
Yeah, that she's getting money from Libya. Well, I mean, look, that might not necessarily... Did it say on the text that she's getting money from Libya?
Well, no, she sent me bank details of a man in Libya with his bank account, his address and his name.
Where she could... But that will be an intermediary where she can receive money.
Yeah, he might not be a terrorist. He might be just giving girls in the camp money.
Yeah. or giving them an account where they can get money transferred to it.
Yeah, possibly,
Either way, the bottom line is whether she should be coming back here or not. She's no longer a British citizen, so I don't see why.
I don't even know why we talk about her citizenship. And not only that, Trump's got to also realise, what about the Americans in that camp? Hoda, one I've interviewed on several occasions, same position as Shamima. She's lost her citizenship. Is he going to take her back? I don't know.
What if, just let's say, for example, she got here via dinghy or some other means and ended up in this country, what would happen to her then? Because most of the people who come here via dinghy, no matter what they've done, seem to be able to stay.
Well, the point is, it's not just her arriving on dinghy, it's all the other people that are leaving that prison, how they arrive, because they're not identifiable. She, unfortunately for her, is identifiable. You wouldn't you wouldn't not be able to recognise her on the street, would you now? She's so known, unless she covers up. I don't know. They'd probably give her a hotel and give her a house and give her a knighthood.
And give her money.
Yeah, and give her money.
And this is funny, but it could happen. That's the worst bit about it.
Yeah, it could well do. Yeah. It really, really, really could. And I think we're in a sad state at the moment. And that's why disappointed much about Nigel, because I actually respected him. I kind of shared a lot of his views. And when I watched yesterday his speech, it dulled it down for me, because of what he'd said and what he'd done. What he said had no impact on me like it had done before, just by what he said about Shamima.
But do you think that Elon is right then? Because Elon was saying that he's not strong enough to be the leader for Reform UK.
I think the inauguration's on the 20th and he doesn't want to upset Trump. I think that's what it's about. I think maybe Nigel needs American money or American backing. So I believe that's what this is all about.
Well, maybe it's not, though. Again, he's dealing with the grooming gang scandal. Reform UK have said that they'll put money for... They want to pay for a national government-led inquiry. It could be more to do with that. But listen, Andrew, so again, the offer is for somebody to pay for you to go off to have a chat with Shamima.
Yeah, I would do. I'd go. So GB News producers, send me out. I'll definitely go.
Send him out. Andrew Drury, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. Thank you very much. Well, if you just tuned in, welcome. 33 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, we will continue our great British debate. And I'm asking, is Elon Musk having a negative impact on British politics? But first, let's get your latest news with Will Hollis.
Thanks, Nana. The trust that oversees the Royal Oldham Hospital has said it is shocked and saddened by the stabbing of a nurse in its A&E department. A 37-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. It's believed a member of the public stabbed the A&E worker with a sharp instrument yesterday, Greater Manchester Police has said. The woman, who's in her 50s, suffered serious injuries and remains in hospital for treatment, and her injuries are believed to be life-changing. In other news, 3 teenagers have been charged with the murder of a 17-year-old in Bedford. Thomas Taylor was stabbed near a bus station on Wednesday. 18-year-old Ahmed Adam and 2 other males, aged 16 and 17, who can't be named, have been charged with his murder. They've been remanded, into custody and will appear at Luton Magistrates Court on Monday. Detectives have made 3 other arrests over the weekend. Bedfordshire Police say they've increased patrols in the area following the absolutely shocking incident, and they continue to appeal for more information. The UK Health Security Agency has extended its cold weather health alert for all of England until Tuesday. Amber alerts will now run until January the 14th, meaning a rise in deaths, particularly among those aged 65 and over with health conditions, is likely. Temperatures dropped to minus 13.9 degrees overnight, but the Met Office said the cold spell is coming to an end. To California, at least 16 people have been killed and thousands evacuated as fires rage in Los Angeles. More than 100,000 people are under evacuation orders. Police say they've arrested 2 people who posed as firefighters to loot homes. Officials say they'll crack down on robberies and those who overcharge for services for displaced people. Gusty winds are forecast for the coming days, potentially further fueling the fires. And your last one for now, a North Yorkshire police officer has sadly died after she was struck by a lorry helping at a roadside accident. PC Rosie Pryor was standing on the verge of the A19 at Bagby near Thirsk with the driver and passenger of one of the cars involved in the incident when a lorry collided with them yesterday morning. Miss Pryor and 41-year-old Ryan Welford from Knaresborough both died at the scene. The 65-year-old lorry driver was arrested on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving. He's been released under investigation. And a teenage boy who was a passenger in Mr. Welford's car is in a serious but stable condition in hospital. Those are your latest headlines. For now, let's get you back to Nana.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, very good afternoon to you. This is your latest GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. After being in control of our weather for a good few days now, high pressure is slowly losing its grip across the UK. It's going to be sinking more towards the southeast, whereas in the northwest we've got low pressure starting to bring frontal systems in. So already starting to see some outbreaks of rain for the far northwest of Scotland, some drizzly outbreaks across Northern Ireland as well this evening. Winds here are also going to be strengthening, very gusty around coastal areas with gales locally severe into the early hours of Monday morning. Some heavier pulses of rain for the far northwest as well towards dawn. A calmer, drier night to come for England and Wales, but here it is going to be quite chilly. Some patches of frost possible for eastern Wales across areas of England as well. So as you start off Monday morning, it is generally the southeast that is going to see the calmer and generally more settled conditions. There is going to be less sunshine around on Monday compared to what we are seeing today. It will be hazier in nature as this cloud is pushing its way in ahead of this frontal system that will be sweeping its way in for Northern Ireland, more widely now into areas of Scotland. Some heavy pulses of rain around the hills, but notice how much milder it is in the northwest. Temperatures 10-11 degrees Celsius here even as we start off Monday morning. All due to those winds that are feeding in that southwesterly theme. Again, they are going to be very gusty here right throughout the day. That rain will eventually slip its way into parts of Cumbria, the far northwest of Wales, also turning damper into the afternoon. Drier elsewhere for England and Wales. Once again, widely cloudy, though temperatures here struggling around 5 to 7 degrees Celsius, but widely double digits for Northern Ireland and Scotland. This north to south contrast is going to continue throughout a good portion of the forthcoming week. Northern areas will be milder, but also generally windier, more chances of seeing some rain around at times also. In the south, whilst drier for a part, it is going to see some fog around, particularly overnight, and it will be cooler in general as well. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon and welcome to GB News. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, lots of you have been getting in touch. I quite like this one from Barbara. She says, Happy New Year, Nana. She goes, when you first went blonde, I liked it, but seeing you today, back to black, love it. Yes, it suits you better. Somebody has messaged in yesterday saying that I looked awful with the blonde, and now I was unwatchable, and thank God, because now they can watch me. And then, but Barbara also goes on to say, she said, good for you looking at Shamima, the bit Shamima Begum story from all angles, including a little compassion. I don't want her back either. All the best for 2025. Barbara, you are funny. Right. right, so you're with me. Welcome on board. This is GB News. It's time for the Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, is Elon Musk having a negative impact on British politics? According to a new poll, more than half of Brits believe that the Tesla CEO is having a negative impact on the UK political scene, following his high-profile criticism of leading political figures, including Sir Keir Starmer and Nigel Farage. So what do you think? Is Elon Musk having a negative impact on British politics? Joining me to discuss, journalist and broadcaster Danny Kelly, and also director of Sanctuary Foundation, Dr. Krish Kandiar. Danny Kelly.
All he's doing, in my opinion, is amplifying British opinion from one side of the argument. Is he having a negative effect on British politics? No, I don't think he's having an effect on British politics. I think some of his tweets, I feel incredibly sorry for Jess Phillips, who is a Labour MP, and when I was a radio presenter for the BBC in Birmingham, which...
It's kicked in. I knew it can't go off the show without saying that.
I haven't mentioned for at least half an hour. I know that she's a good constituency MP, and I think she's a decent individual, a human being. And I was watching an interview with her on a BBC channel, and do you know what? The woman looks broken, and I think that he has irresponsibly tweeted and recklessly something about a woman, and I think she looks broken. It looked like she hadn't slept for a week, the poor woman. I think so.
I don't know. Listen, I feel that you shouldn't be insulting anybody on any platform, no matter what, whatever party, whatever you... So to me, that's a no-no. Full stop. Doesn't matter if you're Elon Musk or Nana Akua or whoever you are. That's unacceptable. But the fact that you're even drawing attention to how broken she is when actually the story is the fact that these girls have been abused and mutilated in awful ways and which will have affected their lives, I just find it... I don't like to see the attention being detracted from the girls to Jess Phillips.
OK, well,
so maybe his tweet wasn't wise for that reason.
Jess Phillips would say that he's negatively affected British politics because now she's having to have round-the-clock security. Is he fundamentally going to change British politics? I don't know. Is he going to get into bed with Nigel Farage? Well, there was that spat the other week, and now they're friends again. Is there going to be another spat? Is it all deliberate? Is all of this, of course, written previously, and you tweet that, and then I'll tweet this, Elon, and you tweet that, Nigel, and then I'll tweet... Who knows what the truth is? I don't think it's negatively affected anything.
No. All right. What do you think, Krish?
I do think he has negatively affected British politics. Look, I think we need to be prosecuting people that are injuring, raping, abusing children,
100%.
Full stop, wherever they're from, whatever their background. But when you start tweeting that someone is a rape genocide apologist, those are his words about Jess Phillips, who I believe has spoken out so powerfully for so long against violence against women and girls, in a culture where we saw less terrible things said about Jo Cox, and that led to her murder on the street. We know that 2 of our politicians have been murdered in recent years. I do think that's a negative impact.
So what about, then, with that, you must think that David Lammy also should be held to account for his words? For calling Trump a neo-Nazi sympathising sociopath, and then Trump had 2 attempts on his life, or maybe it was 3. I mean, words like that can go viral all over the place.
Sure.
And what about Angela Rayner calling the Tories Etonian, homophobic, Banana Republic, racist or whatever, scum?
I think we want to raise the level of our conversation.
But what about them,
politics
then?
In general, I agree. I think Donald Trump had his own vice president say some pretty nasty things about him and still appointed him.
Yeah, that's true. But I'm talking about these people who've also said awful things, and West Streeting talking about running over Jan Moore being run over by a train. In fact, telling people who voted for Suzanne Hall, calling them supremacists, white supremacists. I mean,
no. I think the question was: is Elon Musk having a negative effect on politics?
But
I'm saying that yes, he is. He is the owner of this media platform. He can make sure that more people see his tweets than anybody else because he owns the algorithm. So I think he is having a negative effect.
But do you think those people have a negative effect on politics as well?
I'm very happy to debate the details of all of those tweets.
Yeah, but do you think those people as well, for the words that they're using?
I think we've all got to watch our language very carefully. I do.
All right, so it is the words that are negative. What about the thing he's drawn attention to, though?
Look, I think at one level it's really good that we are talking about the protection of children. I think Elon could use the skills that he has to build brilliant technical systems to actually help us fight these problems. But I'm wondering whether his... I mean, he tweeted so many times in the middle of the night, and they do seem to be very focused on targeting individuals that he's angry with. He's, as we've seen, disrupting the Reform Party by saying, I will vote and then I will pay for you and then I won't.
What's different to that from anybody else? Most people tweet crazy stuff. A lot of it is in the middle of the night.
Well, the difference is he owns the platform and he's the richest person in the world.
Right,
what you highlighted a moment ago is the double standards and the inconsistency bordering on hypocrisy, because from the left they'll call you far right, they'll call you a sociopath, they'll call you a Nazi sympathiser, they'll call you a white supremacist, and they can get away with it. But as soon as criticism is labelled unfair, that's unreasonable and untrue. But as soon as untrue and unreasonable stuff comes their way, then all of a sudden they go into self-protect mode, and it's not fair, and that's not correct.
I think we've got to call it out wherever.
We should do,
There
you're
is
right.
an imbalance of power, isn't there? When the richest man in the world who owns the platform is targeting one specific female MP, that's not a fair fight.
But it's an imbalance of power when David Lammy is calling Trump a neo-Nazi.
I don't think it's an imbalance of power. You've got a foreign secretary talking to a president.
Excuse me, it's my show. Let me finish. When you've got Trump saying, when you've got somebody like David Lammy calling Donald Trump a neo-Nazi sympathising sociopath, it's an imbalance of power the other way around, but it doesn't seem to bother them. That's the point I'm making. So the power argument, I don't think, in this case is relevant. It's more the words that you're calling someone, which I think is unacceptable on any level, no matter what your power is.
In summary, if you're on the left, you can get away with extreme language. If you're on the right, you can't.
What's your summary?
I don't think anyone should be getting away with it. I think we should call all of our politicians and public figures to a higher standard. That if the focus really is how can we make our world better and safer for children, then the way we use language actually impacts that.
Well, it does, but Elon Musk did draw attention to that. So for that specific thing, I don't think it's a negative impact. But what do you think? GBNews.com/your say. Coming up, Supplement Sunday, where my panel and I discuss some of the stories that you may have missed.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Figures released by the National Child Measurement Programme in 2024 found that almost 1 in 10 children was obese in the first year of school. Children living in deprived areas are twice as likely to be overweight as those in more affluent parts. Organisations like the Prepped Foundation are educating youngsters about healthy eating by giving them the skills to create balanced meals. TV chef James Golding has joined the foundation as the head of food education, and he joins me now to talk about the work. James, lovely to see you here.
Good to see you too. So Prepped used to be Table Talk Foundation, and it's now obviously Prep for Life, Prep for Knowledge. It's basically a charity to encourage kids to have a better understanding of food, but at the same time enjoy cooking and hopefully make better food choices in their life, as well as perhaps share the information we give them with their families.
Do you see them developing an understanding of the difference between healthy and unhealthy food?
Yes, I think that kids tend to sort of be taught a lot of this in school, but being able to actually ask questions to a chef and be able to cook with produce which they know is one, that is going to be tasty because they've tasted it, but two, open their eyes to food that they may not have tried before. I think that I think a lot of kids say they don't want to try stuff because they don't like the way it looks, but the way that we produce our sessions, we encourage the kids to try, and I think it really does open their eyes. It's very easy, I think, currently to be able to make easier choices, say fast food choices or that type of thing, and it's obviously giving people the ability to make the right choices, but also the skills to be able to do it. So I think it's something that needs to be addressed and something that really needs to be pushed, and that's what we're doing as a charity.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Right, it is time for Supplement Sunday, the time where I test the panel and chat with the panel about some of the stories that that you may have missed. Joining me, broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly and director of the Sanctuary Foundation, Dr. Krish Kandial. Right, let's see. Well, hopefully we'll get the response to our poll as well up after this, so if we could pop that there. Right, so who should we go with first? Danny Kelly.
Well, this is a remarkable story. Millions of people may be up to a third more likely to develop dementia because of their tap water. New research has found. OK, so listen, if you're listening or watching the telly now, if you live in a softer water area of the UK, 40% of the UK population, around 27 million Britons, may be at an increased risk of degenerative disease because their drinking water contains lower levels of mineral such as calcium and magnesium. Now, if you think we take drinking water for granted, it's on tap.
Yeah.
It's in our kitchen. We drink it every day. And lots of people drink water because it's healthy, or that's the perception.
Yeah.
It's healthier than a fizzy can of cola, for example. Well, if you live in a soft water area, which is 40% of the UK, you may be at risk of the degenerative disease because their drinking water contains lower levels of minerals such as calcium and magnesium. Maybe you could top them up with some supplements. I don't know.
Well,
it's just an interesting...
I actually take magnesium glycinate because it allows the absorption of vitamin D3. So a lot of people taking vitamin D. That's just me. I love doing all the health stuff. But apparently in magnesium glycinate, there's lots of different types of magnesium. There's 5 different types, but glycinate is the one that...
Danielle takes magnesium as a supplement.
Yeah, but there's lots of them. Anyway,
I'm worried there's too much rubbish in our water.
Chris, you've got about 30 seconds.
Oh, sorry. I've just been really struck by this story about PC Rosie Pryor. She was an off-duty police officer. She stops to help someone who'd been involved in a car accident, and she's been mown down by the side of the A19.
Awful.
And you just think she kind of typifies...
Well, she wasn't on her own as well. Somebody else was.
That's true.
As well.
Yeah, but that she typifies the best of our culture, doesn't she? That she saw someone in need. She could have just driven on, but she thought, you know what? I'm going to do my best. I'm going to help, and then mown down. And for me, the whole issue around getting out of your car and away from the motorways as quickly as possible. Definitely do that.
My heart goes out to the families of those who are affected. My one is finally this one. Pineapple on a pizza.
Love it.
I love
it.
I'm into it. But listen, there's a trendy pizzeria. It charges £100 for a Hawaiian to discover customers, to discourage them from putting it on the topping because they hate it so much. This is a place in Norwich, and it is a pineapple on a pizza. Never, says the head chef of the Norwich restaurant, weighing in on the age-old row. So I'm going to ask you, pineapple on a pizza, yes or no?
I wouldn't pay £100 for it, but yes.
Pineapple on a pizza?
Every day, all day long. And this is genius marketing from someone in Norwich.
Yes,
charge someone £100 for a pineapple pizza, you'll get all over the papers and national television. Brilliant.
I haven't named them, but it is Lupa Pizza. That's them. Right. Well, listen, in my poll today, I've been asking, do you trust Rachel Reeves to reduce government waste? And according to our poll on the GB News website, 99% of you say no, we don't, and 1% of you say yes. Surprise, surprise, no surprises there. Well, I've got to say a huge thank you to my panel, Director of Sanctuary Foundation, Dr. Krish Kandial. Thank you very much, Krish. And also journalist and broadcaster Danny Kelly. Thank you so much, Danny. And as ever, a huge thank you to you at home for your company. It's been a pleasure, as ever. I'll be back on Friday at 9:30 for Britain's Newsroom, but I'll leave you now with the weather. Enjoy. Have a wonderful week.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good afternoon to you. This is your latest GB News weather updates provided by the Met Office. After being in control of our weather for a good few days now, high pressure is slowly losing its grip across the UK. It's going to be sinking more towards the southeast, whereas in the northwest we've got low pressure starting to bring frontal systems in. So already starting to see some outbreaks of rain for the far northwest of Scotland, some drizzly outbreaks across Northern Ireland as well this evening. Winds here are also going to be strengthening, very gusty around coastal areas with gales locally severe into the early hours of Monday morning. Some heavier pulses of rain from the far northwest as well towards dawn. on. A calmer, drier night to come for England and Wales, but here it is going to be quite chilly. Some patches of frost possible for eastern Wales across areas of England as well. So as you start off Monday morning, it is generally the southeast that is going to see the calmer and generally more settled conditions. There is going to be less sunshine around on Monday compared to what we are seeing today. It will be hazier in nature as this cloud is pushing its way in ahead of this frontal system that will be sweeping its way in for Northern Ireland, more widely now into areas of Scotland. Some heavy pulses of rain around the hills, but notice how much milder it is in the northwest. Temperatures 10-11 degrees Celsius here even as we start off Monday morning. All due to those winds that are feeding in that southwesterly theme. Again, they are going to be very gusty here right throughout the day. That rain will eventually slip